live button, then that's what gives the notification.
No, because I click go live.
No, but I click go live in the YouTube front end, which is different from you clicking go live in the stream.
No, I click go live on the YouTube end.
Well, I just clicked it again on the YouTube end.
All right, refresh that
And
page.
I've just got an email.
Yep.
Awesome. Maybe we have a stream. Maybe not.
Refresh and see what it says.
Yeah.
I'm hoping. Okay. Definitely me clicking go live. You clicking go live to that button definitely wouldn't end the stream. That would be awkward.
That would be quite a fun thing. Yes, I do think we have a stream. Oh, wow. Already in with a super chat from Joshua, who says, thanks for all you do. If Kyrians can have a wing transmog, so should my demon hunter. What race, class, transmog do you want? That is a good question. I think one to save for Control the Show so I can actually think about it, though.
Yeah.
Because certainly as a hunter, I would love to be able to customize lots of things, which basically just means give me some survival knives for my character's belt, nice. And, different quivers. Oh, Blizz, Daddy Blizz, if you give me quiver customization, that won't be the only thing that'll quiver. There, that's my funniest joke I've ever made. And speaking of things that are funny, for $6.90, from Razor Claw, another super chat, thank you. And then also, Mr. CW coming in here with another super. So
fantastic.
I think we might be able to do a Control the Show segment later.
I hope so.
Thank you guys, all queued up. We're gonna do our sort of chitty chatty talk show bit at the end. First, though, we've got to talk about the news because, man, there is some news.
It's brutal. It is honestly brutal.
Yeah, and it's we can sort of sit here and say it's brutal. I've noticed the Defense Force is back. Yes. The corporate Defense Force are maybe the most frustrating power in the universe. I think to actually take all of the digs at the corporate Defense Force that are required, we probably need to establish what the story is. So.
Of course, yes. So we have... So this doesn't affect subscriptions, but when you want to purchase game time, the way you'd purchase game time, just, hello, can I play the game for 30 days? Sure, here's whatever, the tenner or whatever price it is in dollars. 30 days is gone now. You can no longer just pay up front for 30 days. It's now... Two months is the 2 months is the minimum, and it's just the reasons for it are so it's hard to put into very simple terms without saying things like evil or horrendous at the start, but it is, I would say, it is tweaking the knobs of the money machine in such a way that is positive for the bottom line. And that's the sort of thing a business is obviously going to do. Yeah, of course.
Now, have they actually went and told us, what their reasoning is? No, they basically just said, as a part of a general review of our offerings, blah, 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 we have decided to retire these options. Now, the thing there is, you still can get 30 days of game time, but you can only do it via a recurring subscription. Now, here's the deal, and this is very, very feckin' simple. I think anybody can get it through their skull, unless they are so thick that they are part of the corporate defense force. Because a bunch of, honestly, I'm just going to say, bloody idiots who don't live in reality. I'm happy not to say screw you to those people.
Absolutely.
It's just so stupid. Who is more likely to stop playing the game if they are not fully satisfied? Somebody who purchases 30 days of game time on an ad hoc basis, or somebody for whom that is a rolling subscription where it will renew without them having to think? The answer is absolutely obvious. The person on the recurring subscription is far more likely to stay. Now, this is a part of the subscription model of so many businesses and so many things. I'm really frustrated that I can't remember the actual industry term for that effect, when people basically just stay in a subscription service, basically with no intentionality, and they don't even use a subscription service. But the thing here is, it's all about decisions. And managing the decisions of people is basically a core part of business. And it is something that I think everybody who is a consumer should be aware of, because this is the sort of thing that companies will do on you. And the more that you're aware of it, hopefully the more you're able to think. So if you are buying game time in a non-renewing fashion, then at the end of that 30 days on your battle.net client, it will say you have no time left. You must buy some more time. At that point, you are presented with a thing called a decision. So you then have to make your own determination on whether you want to keep on playing. Now, if it is a rolling subscription, and, well, if it's a rolling subscription, that decision point does not happen by default. It only happens if you have basically a lot of dissatisfaction enough to manifest that intentionality needed to cancel the subscription.
Yeah.
And this is where it comes back to the corporate defense force. You obviously can just do a 30-day subscription and cancel it when you don't want to. But at the same way, we all know there is a reason why every service in the universe gives you a 7-day free trial.
Yeah.
The chances of you forgetting about that free trial are humongously high. It's just a core part of business models. It's one of the reasons why, I mean, if you're on Apple, right, you're on iOS, and I'm sure it's the same for a lot of the apps in Google, you know, they'll have their extremely expensive, you know, like sort of short-term options, and they'll just be trying to push you into that, you know, longer-term option, because then they can guarantee 6 months worth of revenue for you, even if, on average, you'd only really want the app for 3 months. That's kind of just standard practice. You know, so for Blizzard's perspective here, it's pretty obvious what they want to do. They want to ensure, they want to make it so that there are fewer decision points for the World of Warcraft player. Fewer forks in the road. You know, your subscription is ended. Do I go this way or do I go this way? They want less of those decision points. And that basically just means you are less by default on a 30-day rotation forced to reevaluate your World of Warcraft subscription. That evaluation will only happen once, as I said, your dissatisfaction reaches a high enough point that that intentionality will manifest, instead of you being constantly reminded every 30 days, oh, do you want to edit, you know, do you want to hit that buy button again? And that's obviously why they're doing this. Now, the other thing there is it means that for somebody who just casually wants to try out World of Warcraft or see what's going on, or for somebody who just wants to come back for a patch, well, for a lot of World of Warcraft patches, if you are not a super big endgame player, you maybe just want to come back for 30 days. And in that 30 days, perhaps you just want to go and, you know, play through the story content, basically see what's up, do your stuff, and then leave. So a lot of those people, they just go for a 30-day, and then they reevaluate. Now for a bunch of those people, no, it's going to be a 60-day. Now you might say whatever you say about a subscription. What I think a lot of viewers have got to remember is we are World of Warcraft players. We're used to subscriptions. We've been conditioned to them for a very long time. It's like that for MMO players. But almost everybody that I know who I have tried to get into World of Warcraft, thing number one is the subscription. That is a big blocker for them. Mm. So it's an interesting situation. Ultimately, if a company reduces your choice as a consumer, it's obvious why, right? They're reducing people's choice. We all know why. They want to push people towards the recurring subscriptions, and ideally, they want to put people towards the 6 months that comes with a mount.
Yeah.
They would actually rather get you on 6 months with a mount. They'd rather get you to do that than just buy the store mount, because that's how they've basically orchestrated the deal. And fair enough there, it does make a lot of sense. It's just that thing of trying to stack the value proposition super high at the start, and it's that sort of thing where if we were in the Legion expansion, I think people would be a lot more okay with that, you know, because 6 months and a mount, and there's a patch every 77 days, people would feel pretty great.
Yeah, for sure.
But now, well, you use the massive hype of a new patch and a new whatever, because this is what they do for the major patches. Then they do a new mount deal, and they want you to give them 6 months worth of revenue, even though, you know, can we be completely sure you would actually want to actively be playing for all of those 6 months? I mean, look, this is just Business 101, just us explaining it, but I actually, and it's sad that I think this needs to be explained, but based on the absolutely pathetic and embarrassing corporate defense for some of the tweet responses that I got. Yeah, it's incredible. Like, people actually see criticism of a business model seemingly as criticism of like their identity as a World of Warcraft player. I think that's very embarrassing.
That's where Blizzard got their success from, effectively.
Yeah, you create the culture, and then if somebody is seen to be attacking the culture, then for the player it's seen as attacking the community, attacking like the community they're in, attacking their tribe. They take it personally, and that's why they get so up in arms. I have to wonder if that's why some WoW discussions can go... internet discourse.
Yes.
You know, why it can maybe go so sour so quickly, like because of that factor. That's the dark side of... it's the dark side of Jay Allen Bratt getting up there at BlizzCon and monologuing about the power of community and bringing people together and all of that stuff. Because at the end of the day, it is a soulless corporation, one that I would say is full of soulful, lovely people, but it still is that big corporation. Yeah. So yeah, and then there's also people, talking about, somebody mentioned there, thank you for reminding me to cancel my 6-month subscription. Not quitting, but it's a good reminder. Yeah, it was Tom Harrington. And that's the thing. I mean, hey, Tom, if you want to quit your 6-month sub now, use that money to play some other games, and then just go play some World of Warcraft, when there's a new patch. I mean, that's obviously the most efficient use of your money to get the most entertainment in return.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I expect people to talk about this a little bit, where the fact that here they removed the 30-day, but also the 90 and 180-day options. So I imagine there's a lot of defense coming going, oh, well, if they wanted to earn the most money, they would remove the 60, they would remove the 60 and keep the higher end ones. But if they move you to the sub, like, this is mostly speaking from personal experience here, but like, I don't know how many yearly subscriptions I've been a part of because I just forgot to renew. There's a couple
Evernote.
Evernote was one of them. I've been subbed to a PS Plus annually for about 6 years now. And to be fair, like, especially the past couple of years, it's been great. It's been absolutely worth like 50 quid a year for that. But there was like the first 2 years, I was like, shit, there's the notification on my phone. I'm like, I guess I'll stop that. But it's just like, now that it seems like, that could be used as a defense. Oh, dear. Whoops.
There goes his mic.
Nice. Sorry about that. It feels like that could be used as a defense, but it's ultimately all in the game of just getting you to sub and forget. As sad as that is, I don't know how much revenue that would account for, but it would be significant, I think.
Yeah, and there's another really big thing here as well. So a 6-month subscription. Now look, unless something is daily or weekly, I'm not going to remember it.
Of course.
I mean, if there's an Expanse episode coming out every week, Wednesday night, I will remember that. If there's an Expanse episode coming out every fortnight and Wednesday, I will forget it.
Not a clue.
If there's a subscription renewing every 6 months, I will forget it. So, go onto the subscriptions tab of your like Apple account to just see all the subscriptions in your phone. And just, do it right now as you're watching this stream. And your jaw will probably drop at the amount of money that has flown away without you noticing. And I'm not sitting here saying it's a super mega evil thing, but it is something I don't like. And there is actually one company who's surprisingly reasonable about this. It's Slack.
Oh,
Slack have their fair billing policy, and it's actually pretty awesome because our Slack bill for the company does fluctuate over time. Because if somebody is actually not active during a month, Slack will just either discount you or just give you credit. Against your next bill. And I thought that was like, wow, they're actually making it so that I'm only paying for what I use. How bloody reasonable, which I doubt you're going to see anywhere else. But look, that's basically the situation, right? This is all stuff about money. This is all about the psychology of decisions. And I think that if you do not see it in those terms, that you're just being willfully ignorant to try to protect your tribe because for some reason you think that a corporate entity is a part of your tribe, and I think that is silly. And not everybody is going to fall into that category, but certainly a lot of people who I would class in the corporate defense force, that's what's going on. And it's maybe that sort of thing where, it's maybe that sort of thing where as time has went on, we have found less culture from our community, and we've found more culture from these like opt-in online things. And that just kind of means that the modern like community, the modern tribe is these sort of, sort of fictional identities, like, World of Warcraft or whatever. And it's just being like, you can use that for good. And the amount of people who meet each other and get married in World of Warcraft, make these incredible relationships. I mean, so much of like, hanging out with our guild. That's all the awesome stuff. But you've got to be able to take the really awesome stuff and then ensure that you're not exploited. It's a little bit like parasocial relationships. I actually believe Asmongold put out a Zakrar video about parasocial relationships.
Yes.
I've not actually looked into it yet, but people should remember that the parasocial relationship thing, that can happen from a streamer to a viewer. It can also happen from a corporate entity to a customer. Just that the difference is, Asmongold is not sitting there trying to optimize his subscription, in this sort of way. Yeah. A corporation can, bring to bear an extremely highly paid and large data science department to make these things. You can build statistical models, you can factor in the abandonment rates, the churn rates, and all of that jazz, and you can very much find out that removing the 30-day option, making it 60 only, and then getting as many people onto recurring, you can actually find that you can move the needle on your profitability without actually growing your player base. And I'm not saying that as like, oh, this is terrible and evil, but it is something you can do. And if you hire a bunch of data scientists, I mean, yeah, you're going to get that. So that's mostly what I've got to say. I don't know. Do you have anything else to add in this fun shebang?
Nothing really too intense. It's just, well, I guess it's worth considering almost as a counter to being afraid of culture from a corporate entity or something like that. I would say it's about incentives, and almost it's trying not to be mindless when stuff like this comes up.
Yeah.
It's trying to think deeply about like who has what to gain from this. What are like the consequences of this for not just yourself, but thinking outside of like outside of your general existence, and thinking about like what other user groups will be affected by this in a way, what kind of behavior will be affected, because it's not to say be inherently distrustful of things, but that's kind of what I'm saying. It's whenever you see things like this, don't just go, oh yeah, that's probably, that's probably fair. Try to think about everything involved and judge it for all of the impacts it can have.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, there's a lot of people who would say that economics is an analysis, like a study of incentives. There's lots of different people who say, oh, economics is this or this, and some people would say it's studying incentives and what people actually do based on incentives. So maybe less than saying, I suppose it is be skeptical by default,
yeah.
But maybe a finer point in that is be an incentive-aware human. So a human that is aware of the incentives that are playing on their own brain, but also aware of the incentives that are being, the things that are the result of external incentives for other companies. And it's then I want to get into talking about positive and negative externalities and all of these extremely important things. But this is also a World of Warcraft news show, so that might be getting a little bit into the weeds. I think people basically know what's going on here. Yeah.
So the next thing then is actually I brought that up specifically about thinking about other markets to try and lead into this next point, which is at the same time, or roughly the same time as this actually happened, they also raised prices for subscriptions in Brazil.
Yeah, and look, it's that thing where I know so little. I mean, the only thing I know about the Brazilian market is they tend to like PCs more because the import taxes and consoles were insane.
Oh yeah, the $1,000 PS3 I think back in the
day. But I guess the sort of thing where for a bunch of people in Brazil, this is going to suck. I mean, 25% more. That said, to be honest with you, I don't know that much about Brazil in terms of, just how well people, how well off people are. Like, I know it's a very fastly developing country, but, I don't know what that stuff's like. But certainly for any market, a 25% price increase is going to be a bit rough.
Yep.
I mean, you could definitely say it's a per capita less well-off country than the United States. And so this is, I'd say, relative to purchasing power, probably going to be just a tough one for people over in Brazil. Now, what is interesting that you pointed out to me was that a whole bunch of prices have went down for non-subscription fee things. And I would kind of wonder there that if it is like a market that generally, has a little bit less purchasing power or whatever, then would that weigh the dice towards people buying the very mandatory thing, which is the subscription fee, but then people are partaking less in the additional purchases, and perhaps that is why for a lot of for Brazilian World of Warcraft players, they're seeing that their subscription is now more expensive, but then also to perhaps incentivize them, make them feel a bit more comfortable with making those additional purchases, while your character transfers and all that stuff are now cheaper. So that's what's going on, I guess.
That's the thing that I was thinking about as you're saying that. It's like, if you imagine because, okay, I'll lead with what I think might be happening. I think they may have seen uptick of Shadowlands from Brazil be lower than they expected, or something along those lines, because, you know, you can get into the game for, you know, 10 real cheaper, but then it's a little bit more expensive per month. So I think that's a pretty classical move overall, of just lower entry cost and then squeeze more as time goes on.
Yeah.
So I think that may have been maybe a lot of the reason there. But I know we had before the show went live, we had a Brazilian fellow in chat say, I mean, obviously it's completely anecdotal from him, but he did say everyone he knows is going to quit over the head of it.
Yeah, there was somebody else just said it down here.
Yeah.
So I mean, certainly, like, just speaking to the Americans there, like, if your World of Warcraft went from $15 to like $20, that would be a tough enough pill to swallow. So yeah, I mean, there we go. Bit rough. This is, however, the sort of thing that, you know, companies will be doing all the time, based on exchange rates and, you know, all that jazz. Yeah, I don't know how much more analysis there is to do with this story. Really, you should probably move on, but sucks for Team Brazil.
Yeah. So we have next
TBC beta. Something pretty awesome that has again brought up the whole streamer privilege debate. Which,
of course it has.
Which I actually do want to talk about, because I think there is relatively. You know what, I'll just do that first. Like, I have access to this, you know, because I'm on the email list. And I am almost certainly not going to be involved. And actually, it's because I really want to play TBC Classic, but I want to play it as just an individual, right? I don't want to beta test it. I don't do any of that. I just want to jump in and enjoy the experience as a player. So, yeah, it's like, I've got that beta key, and honestly, I do feel a bit bad, because there's so many people who I mean, I say beta key, it's not a key, it's an account flag. Though, that's not always true, because they also literally do keys for giveaways that they send to us. So it's quite tricky. Now, as for the whole streamer privilege thing, yeah, it is streamer privilege. That's actually what happens when you've got an audience. You're worth more to a big company, and they are going to think to themselves, well, it's classic TBC. It is what it is. We're not going to be able to gain a humongous amount from a regular customer being involved, but if we give a whole bunch of streamers access, we will get so many more you know, views. And I'm fairly sure that it did really damn well on Twitch.
Yeah, that's what I'm about to look that up and see. Let's see. Oh dear. Hang on.
I mean, like, I remember whenever, you know, this is the days of Cataclysm Beta, which is also when a lot of you know, a lot of YouTube was kicking off. Yeah, like Total Biscuit, Jesse Cox there. And, you know, I was totally just sitting there being like, I wish I had a beta key. But watching their content and the WoW radio stuff, that got me so damn just exploding with hype. And then I finally did get beta access through a regular wave months and months and months down the line. Did a little bit of it, and I mean, yeah, it worked on me, so it does work on everybody else. That's why they do it. I think that the calls to stop the whole streamer privilege thing, it's like, yeah, it's sort of, in a way, it's unfair, but we also, as I said earlier, which, we have to think about incentives. We have to be incentive-aware individuals. And for Blizzard, the incentives are obvious. That's pretty much that.
Yeah, of course. It's like, it's weird, because you were talking about getting excited by seeing things. I just went, yeah, it's the modern day equivalent of grabbing the magazine copy that has the, you know, they have a preview of the game and they're going to talk about it. It's basically the modern, significantly more engaging version of that. So it is just completely free marketing, and it's weird because no one's technically losing out, I guess, unless there's, you know, a different world in which they would, distribute all of the beta stuff. But like, realistically, this is likely a first wave and an exciting wave to get everyone talking about it and thinking about it, and to show 180,000 people have watched that and go, there we go.
Yeah.
There we go.
I mean, remember when Asmongold got like 1 million concurrents?
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah.
That was wild.
Now, here's the deal. Asmongold gets 1 million concurrents. Companies will, like, CPMs for actually buying a sponsored video. When I say sponsored video, I don't mean the type of sponsored video that we do. That is a sponsorship within a video. I mean just a sponsored, like a dedicated full video playing a game. I mean, those, you can be dealing with CPMs. Now, they could be as low as $5. They could be as high as $30. If you're going to take the middle, say $15 for a dedicated, gameplay video with a highly targeted audience, the value, if you actually have to pay for those views, is just beyond, it's insane. So that's the whole streamer privilege thing. Pretty obvious. Before we hop into the next little bit about beta, though, I just want to say a big thank you to... we've got Razorclaw coming in with a question asking about the games company, which I'll say what I can on that a little bit later. We've got Rally also coming in with a super chat question, which will be a big one for Control the Show, actually, because that's interesting stuff. And I think, is that us? Yes, we also have Alberto, who asked about the price increase for our Brazilian friends. Yep. You must have joined the stream. Thank you very much for the super chat. You must have joined the stream like just after, because we did do a full segment on it. So you can DVR back and we will we'll have the clip all up for that. Now as for the rest of WoW Classic, The Burning Crusade. Oh, sign me up. I'm so excited. And I'm kind of excited for, I mean, it's going to scratch things that the current game doesn't, and in some ways can't, because of what it fundamentally is. I don't mean that in a good way or a bad way. If you want to do your Mythic Plus stuff or your competitive, obviously the modern game is where that's going to go down, but there's just some of those aspects of an RPG experience that are different in an older game like The Burning Crusade. I can at least say for me personally, it's like outside of raiding, I wonder if I would enjoy the day-to-day experience of playing Classic TBC more. I really want to try to find that out as a player, because I wasn't able to put the time into WoW Classic. But man, I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think it's interesting mostly because Classic was interesting, I think, as an experiment, and obviously Vanilla was extremely rough in so many ways. But TBC is like the first kind of steps to, I mean, obviously if you're a big naysayer, you can say, this is where they lost a lot of the magic of Vanilla being this complex, confusing nightmare. It started to streamline, but also all of the stuff that they got wrong with Vanilla, all of the stuff that was way too grindy or way too annoying or way too obtuse, they started to dial that in really well. It's like, I keep thinking about the attunement chart. I keep thinking about how the reputations were tolerable in TBC compared to anything you had to do in Classic for that. And it's just like, it's like the quality of what World of Warcraft is kind of definitely took a different direction slightly, but it definitely stepped up over the next couple of expansions. So it's like for people who really like the Classic experience, but were kind of like thrown off by just how mad it was and also how completely solved it is as a game, I feel like TBC will be less solved by the general populace and also significantly more palatable.
Yeah, I think so we are doing the complete history of the Burning Crusade. I've spent the last day and a bit trying to trim down the script and make sure it's real, just, tight and slick. Going through the attunement section, though, to me, that's just like, oh boy, here's a big journey to take my character on. It's not a currency. It's not a bar. It's not renown. It's just like, you want to get in here? Well, you got to open the bloody gate. How do you open the gate? You get the key. How do you get the key? You do all that shit. And you're like, I'm just like, cool, so I can grab my mates, do all that shit, get the key and go in there. Awesome.
Perfect.
There's something about that. It's just so... you know, it's, in a way you could say the attunements are complex because you look at it at a graph and you think, oh my God, a game designer designed that graph and it's so confusing. But then you kind of think about it experientially and it's like, oh yeah, you know, it's that thing. You go to a DAO, you prove yourself to the Naru by doing all of these things. And then he gives you the stuff, you know, he gives you the key to the big spaceship and then you can go in and kill Kel'Thas. You're like, oh yeah, cool. and the way too that, oh dear, all the people who talk about our Clips channel just being rants are going to love this.
Okay, let's go then.
But like, I unlocked doing, or not I unlocked, haven't done it yet, it's not out, but you know, if I want to get into Tempest Keep, it's like I've got to go through actually a bit of a storyline. I think some people would be surprised how the attunements process is really quite like narrative and fantasy driven.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah. So it's like I got into the raid because I went on the appropriate journey and saw that story. Now, I'm not sitting here saying that the storytelling of TBC was great. It was not. No. They had... We'll get lore of TBC. I mean, I don't even say that just for badness. It's just an interesting topic because so much changed. My modern version of that, though, was just I did the campaign for odd reasons. I got some renown. My renown bar went up, but I was doing the raid anyway. It's like it wasn't just a journey, right? Now it's the sort of thing, I mean, if you add those achievements into the game right now, all hell will break loose.
Of course.
I mean, just whenever people have to go through enough of Suramar to unlock Archway.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Christ.
I mean, hey, make it account wide. I'll definitely admit that. But that's more, I think, just to say that it's a different experience, and that's actually exactly what I want. A different experience. That's why I'm excited.
Yeah, the thing that would I keep having these really weird, like, vague flashbacks and analogies, but when you're thinking about it, when you're talking about it being an experience and being a journey, I was like, yeah, of course. It's like, and I don't know why this came to my head, it's like watching or playing through a season of Legend of the Seeker. I don't know if you've ever seen that show. Nope. A really obscure book adaptation that was on I think it was on the Sci-Fi Channel for a while. But it was a really, really super generic like fantasy show. But it was just like throughout a season, you would, you know, characters would be like, okay, we have to go kill the big bad. How do we do that? Oh, well, we'll ask around if anybody knows. Oh, what's that weird, like, who's this weird sage person? The hiding in the cave. Okay, go talk to them. Oh, we need the crystal of generic fantasy name. Okay, we'll spend 3 episodes going to get that. And it's just this whole series of steps that is like logically actually, it like obviously people represent it as a chart, the achievements chart, but it's a very, very long-term quest you're going on effectively.
Yeah.
You're just going on a very big quest comprised of lots of little quests, which included dungeons and ended in raids.
Yeah.
So great.
And then on top of that, knowing that also not valor points and justice points are there. Yeah. So like I can do all of those dungeons. Like just the idea of I'm more keen to just do every single dungeon on heroic in that expansion than I am to get Keystone Master. And I think it's just because I'm less interested in the time trial style gameplay. Yeah. Like, Mythic Plus, you know, whatever, it's great, but I just don't think the time trial gameplay like that, where it doesn't make narrative sense, is like fantasy MMO.
Yeah, it's not an experience.
It's obvious video game.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, for a fantasy MMO, there's other things that are important, and I think that the lack of extreme development of those gameplay features means that TBC just has to rely so much more on being a more traditional fantasy RPG, which is actually what I want to get from it. So, yeah, I'm just so damn excited. And even just the prospect that while I'm doing all of that stuff, you know, I can get the justice points, fill in little bits of my character, you know, eventually the Sunwell tier is going to come out and I'm going to get a really cool patch island. Because it is a really cool patch island. And it was also one that it was pretty, like, reasonable to navigate. There was just somebody just go there and knock out all your dailies. It was pretty satisfying to me, at least when I did as a noob. So much of it is just like, okay, you were so much more clued in and intelligent of a player when you were playing TBC than I was. You're a year older than me. Not that that's too much of a factor. Yeah. But when I was there in TBC, I was a bloody idiot. I didn't know what I was doing. So I've got all of those really fond memories and stuff. Yeah. but actually going in there and engaging with that as an adult, I'm really, really interested in that.
Yeah.
And I hope it lives up to what I think it will do.
That's I think it actually completely will. It's just predicated on, it's like I was saying last week about me just playing Classic for an hour and getting really super engaged with it. It's that thing where if you can set your expectations correctly and frame all of the things you're doing in game in your head correctly, then I think even though you'll be an adult going, I need to do this, I think you actually will completely be able to enjoy a lot of that significantly more.
I mean, I remember people who are regulars of the stream will know about me and Matt's night with the Harpies.
Yep.
In WoW Classic, in the north of the Barrens. I remember that little bit of questing more than I remember any slice of questing in Shadowlands or Battle for Azeroth. Your jaunt into Northwatch Keep.
Yep.
And it's just because when we were there in the Pit of Harpies, we really had to play the game. Yeah. And I still remember as a kid, going around the place with the spectral humans left over from the Second War.
Oh, the very south of Hellfire?
Yeah, the very south of Hellfire, yeah. It's like, I actually remember some of those older quest hubs that I've literally not done in years. I remember them more than the completely mindless experience. Yeah. I have a very vivid memory of the combat pacing and in-between pool downtime on my warrior, my very first time in Hellfire Peninsula. And I think so much of that is because I really had to play the geometry. I had to play the placement of the mob packs, because if I didn't, I'd really die.
Yeah.
And it's just not like that as much anymore. No. So I think it's a lot of those reasons. It's just such a different experience. That's why I am so excited for this. But not for beta.
No.
I can only play something paced like this when it really, my time matters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's that. Now, that said, I don't think it's up there, but they did find a bunch of PTR vendors. It seems like, there will be pre-mades and stuff. Yeah. So that'll be cool. And certainly, it'll be fun at some point to, hop into the beta, place a character at a choice position, and just get cool footage of legions of people running around the wastes of Outland. I mean, awesome.
Yep.
So, I'm just excited. Basically.
Yeah, it's especially because, I mean, I guess it was the same for you. For me, TBC was the first time I engaged with the game properly, as opposed to playing a little bit of my friend Shaman in Classic. Not actually, or in Vanilla, I guess. Not actually playing the game the way I remember it, and with all of the same journeys, but, well, I guess it'll probably be Alliance this time because Guild. That'll be fun.
Well, it makes me think of Preach's legacy videos because, Mike's got a few years in both of us. Yep. And I think that just means, even in a way, his cognitive development was further than ours was because we were literal children at that time. So all those really nostalgic experiences that you watch one of Preach's older legacy videos and you're like, oh, wow. I really understand Mike's journey through, being a player through Vanilla, through TBC. That's something that, we're both aware of, but it's something I know I never experienced.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing. I always remember Asmongold saying, for Classic, he would basically say, look, boys, don't try to, he wasn't advocating for Classic so that he could relive and capture the magic for him. Yeah. For him, it was such that a new generation of people could get that. And again, Asmongold is 2 or 3 years older than I am, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's 2 years older. Is it 20? I forget what it is.
2, 3.
But point being, we just missed out on that. So those experiences that you'll see some of those slightly older WoW creators talk about with so much just, love and memories, for so many of us. And I mean, we're both people who started properly in TBC. Yeah. And we can even still not recapture, but experience that in a more intentional, more proper way. I think that might be a large part of what can just do so well about this as a product for Blizzard, because I mean the amount of people just on our channel, and it turns out they started playing in Legion. Yeah, I see comments from people who are like, "Oh yeah, I started playing WoW in BFA."
Like, what?
And I don't mean this as an insult to them or anything like that, but I just cannot understand that, and I don't mean that in a way of I can't understand actually playing the game BFA. No, I mean that in a way of just, I cannot even fathom how I would think about World of Warcraft if my initial experience of the game was BFA.
Yeah, it's so vastly different.
Yeah, I mean, I even hear, who was it? No, it wasn't Tali who started in Kata. But I remember hearing somebody say they started in Kata, and or maybe it was Kata or Mop, but whatever it was, I still just remember being like, my God, I cannot imagine what it would be like to how I think about the game if that was the point at which I started, because even by then, you know, it was changing and shifting.
Yeah.
So it's interesting stuff. And I think that's why classic TBC just like hits such a point. And really World of Warcraft hit its height at the end of classic TBC. I think it rose a little bit into Wrath and then just maintained. So it was really classic TBC that was like that, just humongous, you know, taking WoW to the 12 million. Or at least on its way, well on its way.
I think its absolute peak was actually Kata launch, I think, was where the 12 million came. But then it sort of slid down after that. I think so anyway. I think it was the hype for Kata that got up to the 12 and then, but it was very close to it during Wrath.
Yeah.
It was one hell of a game in Wrath.
So man, yeah, I'm so in. I
definitely
just hope I can have the time to actually play it. That's the thing. Like, my plan was to play Classic with Stark, which is the Preach's community guild. It was great. I logged in, we played. I was like, oh look, there's Drez in my friend list, and there he is in the guild. Cool. I'll be able to play Classic with those people I met at PreachCon. And then it was just like, oh wait, life's a real bitch sometimes, and you just have to get to work. So yeah.
We'll have to make time, because I definitely want that Resto Druid TBC experience. 100%.
Unfinished business with your staff.
Yeah,
you never got.
Business. Yep.
So yeah, that's some of the TBC hype. I think pretty wonderful. We have got super chats from 10S asking about paladins, from Angry the Chipmunk about RP, which I think is a humongously important topic.
Yes, for sure.
From Balshazar about Blood Elves and Draenei. And also from, chat is escaping me, from WoW Dubbers as well, about Arthas. That'll be a fun one. And Skyrage as well. So, man.
Nice.
Our Control the Show segment is going to be real fun and chunky. Yeah. And we'll get to talk about Arthas.
Fantastic.
So that's good.
Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah, man. TBC.
Let's move on.
I think that's most of it.
Yeah, so there's a couple other things that I don't think we can really talk about much in depth. It's just like there's some things that people are a little bit worried about, it's kind of the same as the spell queue window from Classic, where it's gameplay stuff that was that was there for a reason. Technically doesn't need to be there because people have higher latency, better computers, etc., but it's still going to be there. So I think through beta we're likely going to see a lot of the changes, no changes, some changes stuff crop back up.
Yeah.
But I think I kind of trust Blizzard ultimately with this after how they handle Classic. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. There are some discussions about using a willingness for some changes being a way to introduce monetization. And that is something we should talk about. There's a lot of talk about the mount and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Which, I don't want to count the chickens before they've hatched, or whatever however the saying goes. Where were we again? Yeah, so the changes stuff. Yeah. It's the sort of thing where I don't have a massive opinion on a bunch of it because it didn't affect me massively. Yeah. I mean, the way they were doing the phase rollout, I thought that made sense. And I think it would be very easy to be angry about that if you didn't fully understand it. Or if you were somebody who actually wanted TBC to release no changes so that it could play out differently. Because if TBC launched no changes, it would probably play out very differently. So a lot of people, they think, oh, Mount Hyjal, that was there on launch.
Yeah.
But obviously Mount Hyjal is not something that people reach for 6 months.
Yeah.
It was was after Black Temple? Because it was the Black Temple patch.
Yes.
I forget the exact dates.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
Was it around July? July 2000?
I don't remember dates, but I do remember think it was... They were very, very close because I remember doing some of the history stuff, and it was looking at that timeline for kills, and it was what? How did this... Oh, yeah, that's right. The general progression.
it just like it took ages to get to kill.
Yeah.
And it took ages to get up to High Gel. Like High Gel was a launch raid, but it was cleared after a patch raid came out. So splitting the phases up that way, I think vaguely does make sense. At least for me personally, I can understand a lot of people would like to just have it go out as it did and see if the players can just, sweep through.
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, that's not the classic experience they would want.
Yeah, that's what I think is a really fun discussion around it all. But it's just do you enforce the experience that people had, or do you let them play it differently? And I think obviously I would definitely lean on the enforce the experience players had where reasonable. I think
the where reasonable is very important to define well. But
yeah, of course. But yeah, I think that's mostly it for TBC. There's nothing super that I could even talk about in depth with it, obviously. But
that's that thing. I mean, the patch or the expansions. Well, the expansion that I start having the encyclopedic knowledge of is Wrath and onwards.
Yeah, same.
So
absolutely same.
There's that. Now, in terms of other things for the news, there is the very obvious big one that came out via Towley.
Yes,
which I sort of feel like doing. And it's funny. My initial reaction to this was, damn, dudes.
Yep.
Dude said that publicly.
Yeah, I can actually play it if you give us 1 second.
Roll.
I'll play this for you. So this is don't crucify me if the audio levels are off. They should be fine. But here's what he says.
Ladies and gentlemen, Shadowlands is behind. 9.1, we might not see that till August. I asked someone over there, hey, how's PR looking for 9.1? I got a shrug. How's June looking for 9.1 release? And literally was told June would be optimistic if 9.1 came out. So yeah, folks, buckle your seatbelts. We're in for a ride of Castle Nadria and Prideful. The next maybe 4? What?
I don't know, Tally. I mean, do we need to buckle our seatbelts if we're not going anywhere? I mean, certainly props to Tally for coming out and saying that.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope that... Oh, no audio, apparently.
Okay.
Oh, but people got the subtitles. So...
Yes, the mute button here's hit. God damn it.
Okay. People got the subs, though, so it's okay.
Yeah.
It's like I was surprised that Towley kind of went out and said that. I hope that his, whoever his mates are at Blizzard don't get any kickback for that.
Yep.
But it's the sort of thing where I really do appreciate the candidness and the honesty there. And it's worth saying as well, if this information came from a source that people thought was, a WoW hater.
Yeah, had skin in the game.
Then you'd take it with less credibility. But I think it's the start of this video. Not Tally. I say it because he mentions Tally. Yeah. But Towley says, blah, blah, blah. I'm a shill. I'm up there with Taliesin and Avatel, So basically, it was just a dude saying, look, I'm, more on Team Blizzard more of the time.
Yeah.
And I just think that means that whenever somebody is more like that and they're, going out and saying this stuff, I generally take that as more authentic, right?
Yeah. It's for him to say that, it's like,
Yeah, because this is not a boy who cried wolf sort of situation. And if it was if this came via some channel, you looked at their history and it was all just, I don't know, it was just 100% WoW vitriol, then you obviously wouldn't put too much stock in it. But I really do think that, the Towley's coming out and being honest here, which I think we all do really appreciate a lot. Tough old pill to swallow, though.
Yeah. Ooh. I mean, where do we even want to begin talking about this?
Oh man, it's hard. It's hard to say.
Yeah, because we've got first of all, to be fair, I was gonna say where's PTR, but TBC beta, I guess they'll want to keep the headlines a little bit, but it's so brutal because what was it you were saying in that struggling video? PTR's 2.5 months.
Yeah,
PTR's usually 2.5 months before a patch. If June's optimistic, and they're being realistic with PTR, that means we'll have PTR, or that means PTR should be expected mid-April.
Dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, one of the, like for one of the videos we put up yesterday, John had a graphic of the comparative releases, and you know, it was really, I just liked how he represented it, and it was very funny because like I was assuming more of a early July at the latest, June probably. That was my opinion when making that video. And I'm just imagining, you know, what would that graph that John put together for that video, what would that look like if we used August? Because by the time it's August, I remember, I've worked this out for the WoW News episode that comes out tomorrow. If this patch came out July 14th, it would be 233 days after X-Pack launch. Brutal. Absolutely bloody brutal. And, I mean, it's one of those things like, I really don't think Towley's making that up. And like, I know that he's really tight with Blizzard people from what I understand. So I don't think he's making that stuff up. I think he honestly does mean that. And, you know, note that he said that June was optimistic, and whenever he was saying something, he said August.
I hate laughing about it, but it's mostly due to shock, to be honest.
Absolute fucking travesty.
Yeah.
Now, it's not purely Blizz's fault.
Of course.
I do think, and this is something I've been more willing to say as times went on, I do think it's in large part Blizzard's fault, though. Yeah. Because as many of you know, I have fundamental disagreements with how they develop aspects of the game. I think that they do not put anywhere near enough time into content, and they seem to just spin their wheels endlessly thinking about stupid systemic wrappers for that content that's basically just trying to hoodwink and bribe people into playing shit they don't want to do. Right? Like, as I said in the past, imagine if Torghast had nothing to do with Soul Ash, then maybe it could be fun, because it would just be its own game feature that could be developed in isolation as its own thing to be really good. You know, looking at, you know, conduits and stuff. It's like, did we need to go through all of that iteration in beta? Was that in fact just a humongous, colossal waste of time? You know, Covenants. Blizzard think they're the coolest shit in the universe. I don't know. I don't think there's really that many players that think Covenants are as cool as Blizzard does.
No.
I mean, I remember the press kits we got. They sent us these Covenant canvases, which were just icons for the Covenant on a canvas. And whenever we got them, we just looked at each other completely baffled, being like, what is this? You know, it's like they tried to make it so cool that it ended up being way less cool than just Aldor or Scryer. Because Aldor or Scryer just felt like a natural thing in a city we visited instead of a very, very very forced feeling thing. But it's just that thing. If this was an expansion, just thinking, how do we get lots of content to the players? Would we have us doing a bunch of conduits and basically wasting so much time in beta? I mean, I remember doing the interview. And in the interview I was doing, I was getting all of the regular, you know, defenses for consumable conduits, which obviously I thought were dumb. Then
Of course.
the conversation happens with Mike, with Preach. And then they change the design of conduits. And then they do conduit energy. And then we had to go through the same thing with Torghast Torments. All because of these stupid balance concerns that anybody who's just thinking, oh, this is an MMO, so it's all about player experience. And for something like Torghast, I mean, the balance doesn't matter too much. But, you know, we were sitting there talking about balancing the usage of cooldowns because of Torments. Which were initially going to be these just, you know, stacking things that would prevent you from, you know, because the worst thing in the world, our players could wait for their cooldowns. And I just think, like, man, how much time did we waste having all of these pointless conversations that, I mean, were just so bloody obvious so much in advance. And that is to say that I think that, I mean, I don't know why Blizzard have over time just decided that World of Warcraft has, you know, every single thing they do has to fit in some sort of systemic box. I mean, maybe that's why the second something is not forced into a systemic box, it's cool. You know, like Deaths of Chromie and all those little things that are cool purely because they're not a part of anything else. It's just someone's like, oh, I'm passionate about this thing, let's go do it. They do it. They're like, oh, cool, that's it. Job's goddamn good. So that is all to say that I think they developed the game in a way where there's a lot of dependencies. You know, one thing goes off, destroys something else. You know, the mall's not very fun, but that's where you got to get your sockets and your conduit leveling from. And now, for some reason, your raiding and Mythic Plus experience is less enjoyable because they've forced you into the mall. All of this stuff, it's like there's so many dependencies. It all feels very complex and not that intuitive, and just over-designed. And I have to wonder, is just this thing of the game feeling so over-designed, is that why they seem to just trip over themselves all the time and fall behind schedule all the time? I mean,
Probably.
back when we had Legion, it was just 77 days. New patch.
Yep.
And then BFA comes. And BFA tries to make Azerite armor. You know, God's chosen, the thing from on high. This one gearing system that would inside it capture glyphs, make gearing more fun, not have Titan forging people. And we're like, we didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
You could have just kept the gear simple. Because if they just shipped BFA with boring gear, they maybe wouldn't have been forced to do essences for patch 8.2 and to do all of those things that were designed to fix the problems of launch for 8.2 of the essences, 8.1 for a whole bunch of immediate firefighting. Maybe they wouldn't have had legions of players screaming at them about reforging, Azerite reforging, that is.
Yeah.
So my honest to God opinion here is just that it's just these things that are so damn complex, perhaps needlessly complex, and that just means that they have to sweat so many details.
Yeah.
And I just have to wonder, is there a more simple way of developing this game that is a lot more just optimized towards getting content out for players?
Yes, there is. I think I've got a good way I think of explaining it, in that they continually as a team look for a silver bullet.
Yeah.
When realistically they just need to use a lot of bullets. Instead of trying to craft, instead of trying to craft this perfect, like, this will solve all of our problems in one go, they're just like, nah, just throw stuff at us. It's like, another way I would sort of explain it is, it's like everything has to be on this path. There's this journey, and everything has to fit on this, like, preordained path that they have set up. Whereas whenever you're in Legion and you see the Mage Tower, that's not part of this path that is World of Warcraft. That's a little side dot.
Yeah, and that's what made it awesome.
And that's basically it. World of Warcraft is, as it stands, mostly a singular path that you're just kind of trundling down. You're doing stuff on that path, but it feels like it's on this path. And then anytime something comes to the side, you're just like, oh, what's that? Oh, that's not on this path. This is more interesting by nature of not being part of the done thing. So just, like, the solution is to use a lot of bullets to dot off the side of the path with as many things as humanly possible. Stop caring about how it fits into an overall solution. Stop caring about, like, if it's good enough, or if it fits into the overarching lore, or, like, teases little bits of expansions. Just go, oh yeah, this doesn't matter. It's like me and Jared were talking about in the office earlier. It's like, why can't you just get a load of people to rebuild a section of Gilneas and put a murder mystery in it? Doesn't have to be tied to lore or tied to another expansion. Just, here's a murder mystery in Gilneas. Go do that for an evening.
Yeah.
Do that. Figure out how long it takes to make that, and then make 30 of those. And look at that. You've got like a year of content. Obviously, that would take time and effort. You know, you'd want to balance it versus the actual game's progression. But the principle's there. Just make stuff for us to do.
So I think a way you could explain that is one-shot content.
Yeah.
As in, it's just a thing over there, go do, if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, we're going to get known for food analogies in this stream.
Yes.
But a bit of it here is, Blizzard is always trying to craft the set menu.
Yeah.
Right? And I think for a lot of people, they just want an awesome a la carte menu where, you know, they enter the restaurant, they're like, all right, sweet. I want this, and this. That's quite a lot of orders from a restaurant. Whereas now it's more like you enter World of Warcraft and the set menu is placed in front of you, and it's like, you've got 2 dessert options, 3 main. No, you've got 2 starter options, 3 main options, 2 dessert options, and that's that. You know, where it just feels like they're just trying to make that perfect track instead of just being like, hey, here's Azeroth, lots of stuff in it. And the reason why we're bringing this up in relation to what Towley had mentioned about his Blizzard contact is that it is, I think, the belief of the pair of us that the current way the game is being made, with all of these systems, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is such that it is more complex, that more balancing is required, and that more fine-tuning of details is needed in order for content to be shippable. Because right now, one soulbind is way too powerful because of a bug, and suddenly we have a massive issue. You know, they're doing domination gear for the new raid. So I assume for some reason they have decided that they really need to just spunk up the raid gear. And I'm now thinking, okay, fair enough. But raid gear feels okay after the 33% increase and all of that jazz. I mean, I'm cool with domination gear, but it's like, how much time is that taking them? How much complexity is that added? How hard is it to balance the various different classes along with this domination gear? What is that system? What is it like? I don't know. I don't know, but corruptions. How much time do they have to spend around 8.3 doing corruptions during PTR? And then how much time, when they were obviously developing Shadowlands, did they have to spend making a currency to put into the game so that people could actually earn corruptions? And all of the things they did to change 8.3 such that multiple months into patch 8.3, it was a vastly superior experience to what it was at launch. But obviously, they only have so many people. So all of that time that was spent making patch 8.3 better, well, that took away from Shadowlands development time. And you're like, well, why did they need to put all that work into making 8.3 better? Oh, because corruption stuff was so complex and hard to balance and all of that stuff that they obviously couldn't get it to be good by the time launch happened. So they had to keep on developing the patch for months after it came out. And that obviously would have hurt Shadowlands a bit.
They made their life significantly harder for themselves by virtue of the direction they took. Which brings me on to something, but first I'll say Shadowlands has very little content. They had to work really hard on 8.3 after it was out and 8.2 after it was out. Legion had probably the most content of almost any expansion released, and that's because they just cut Warlord short and give it the full hog of everything. But my point on direction is, it's like, because I keep trying to reconcile, like I keep trying to reconcile this in my head, where I'm like, obviously, the systems people are working on those systems, so there's nothing inherently stopping the quest designers, the people who write quests, implement them, keep them going. What's stopping them? What's holding them back? What's not letting them make content? And I think from the look on your face, I think I know what you're going to say. Go for it.
What if it would disrupt the season?
That's actually not what I was.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I wasn't actually thinking that. I was thinking direction. I used that word very, very intentionally.
Okay.
And this isn't to like cast any shade on anyone who's working at Blizzard, but if the game director is focusing on all of these systems, and he's very involved in them, obviously based on like the conversation with Mike, he's very, very like on the ground with a lot of those. So every second he's spending trying to fix like systems up on that are like super focused on those and trying to solve all those problems and guiding them himself as someone who's like came from that background.
Those are real problems, and he's almost certainly the man for the job.
Like
as his expertise.
100%. But all of that time he's spending there, like, and this is an entirely hypothesis of mine, is all that time spent there holding back other people from going, hello, director, we have all this stuff. Can we go ahead? Can we sit down with you and get this planned out? I'm wondering, is that fundamentally is that why all of the system stuff is taken away from other content? even though fundamentally, if you look at like a team, it shouldn't. I don't know.
think a way to maybe frame that could certainly lead to a discussion that could go off the rails less is more about institutional focus.
Yes, yeah, that's fundamental.
Where I do feel like the institutional focus of Blizzard is more systems than it really ever has been in the past. And I think that does disrupt the game.
Yeah.
And I think it happened because there was large success with the Legion expansion.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are those of us, I think I'm one of those people. I know that you are because we were having those conversations at that time. Preach is another one of those people.
Yep.
There were loads of us during Legion who were, you know, saying that things were issues. I remember it was a video I did about legendaries that, you know, funny enough, it's not too dissimilar what I proposed to some of what we've got now. But I remember doing this video about the problem with launch legendaries and being slaughtered for going against the orthodoxy that Legion was the second coming that had saved World of Warcraft. And in many ways it did. And it was awesome. And there was so much content. And even though I did have frustrations with AP and the Legos and stuff, well, I mean the Legos from a gameplay and balancing perspective, like there was lots of content associated with all that jazz that I could go and do. And that was all awesome. But I feel like getting all of those systems and really focusing on them paid such humongous dividends for the team during the Legion expansion that a bunch of lessons that were learnt that were obviously catastrophic the second it was BFA and things didn't turn out as well as they thought they did. And we're now in a situation where they tried to again make everything systemic, and what they've done is they've made it that, as we said in the previous stream, you know, where you would go and you know, you'd unlock your Legion artifacts by going and doing, you know, more unique, bespoke activities. Now, if you want cosmetic stuff, you grind the same homogeneous currency, and that's that.
Yeah.
So by making the cosmetic systemic as a part of your covenant, all behind that currency, they've made it such that, you know, unlocking the 50,000 anima mount or unlocking the cool armor set is all just grinding world quests. It's not, you know, oh yeah, you go and do that thing for that faction and get that thing. It's less unique. It's that big move into the systems.
Yeah.
And as we go here, it's like, you know, you can make all the content in the world for patch 9.1, but if you are making a game that fundamentally has to have all its things tied together under these big systems, those systems are going to be blockers. And I think it is fair to say that Blizzard have got worse at shipping content over time.
Almost certainly, yeah.
They have versus Legion. They have versus Mists of Pandaria.
Of course, yeah.
So it's like, what's changed? And I think some design direction has changed. Some institutional focus has changed.
Yeah.
You know, they're seemingly more thinking about the MDI and, you know, a lot of attention going towards those very competitive communities and very systems-driven players. What I think is funny is they've done all these things seemingly to keep those players happy and keep on playing the game, yet those seem to be the players that like those things the least. Which has always seemed a bit counterintuitive and weird to me. Whereas those players have always just been, oh, just piss off and let me raid. Like, I remember, I think it was Preach talking about enjoying WoD. Correct me if I'm wrong. But, or not, maybe not enjoying WoD, but I think it was just Mike talking about, like, yeah, it was cool. I went in, I raid logged. I'm a raider. That was the thing I wanted to do. Yeah. There were no barriers put in the way of my raiding, so I just enjoyed raids. And I can definitely say from my time in that expansion, more in the first half, God, I loved raiding in WoD. It was awesome. You know, it's like we had vaguely, you know, we had very reasonable, reasonable gear outside of you just getting a free bit of raid loot every week.
Oh yeah,
from your garrison. But it's like, surely the best way to keep the raiders happy is just to let them raid and not make them do anything else. Because the second you don't tie all of that stuff together, then you're free to just make content, put it in. You don't have to worry. I mean, why is the mob being designed around raiders getting sockets? Or raiders upgrading their conduits?
Yeah, it's almost like, and this is technically a food analogy, but it's almost like what Blizzard were very good at doing during WoD and other times was they put the content out on a dish and left it at the back door, and the players would be like, all right, I'll have some of that. But now they're spending so much time trying to coax like it's a cat in this analogy, by the way, trying to coax the players in to like get the food, but they just haven't left the food out and let them actually have it.
Well, it's like a set menu, a really long set menu in a restaurant. But in order to unlock your main, you have to eat all of your appetizers. You might not like shellfish, but tough luck. To unlock your main, you've got to eat that shellfish starter. And in this case, the shellfish starter is Raiders going to the Maw or Raiders going to Torghast. Whereas that could be a delicious shellfish starter for somebody who would want a shellfish starter and is not forced to do it. Whereas now, for all the people who do love Torghast, well, unfortunately, Torghast has been shot in the face, knees, and feet by a bunch of people feeling bribed, basically, to go into it, and they haven't had a good experience. So now it's going to be harder for Blizzard employees to justify spending more time in Torghast, even though there's people like you and me who absolutely could love a version of Torghast. But every time I say that I think Torghast is awesome, potentially, that Horrific Visions are awesome. I loved Horrific Visions. I just get people in the comments being like, I'll never go into Torghast again. Never.
Yep.
And it's like, well, my gut reaction is, that's stupid. Think about how good it could be. But then my extended reaction is, oh, wait, I have to think about that person's emotional experience.
Yeah.
They've obviously been burnt by this in a way that, maybe they worked really hard.
Yeah.
They were really looking forward to their WoW time. And then they just, because they're a raider, they just got forced into doing a thing they didn't want to do.
Yeah.
And maybe they lost to some bullshit. An hour of their time went away. And now they're sad. Yeah. And it's that thing where I think Blizzard are so bizarrely willing to let you have a really bad experience. They're so good at making a disappointment loop. The Torghast stuff is obvious as compared to how almost any other company on Earth makes a roguelike experience. And Blizzard know that. They've mentioned it. Morgan mentioned it in his interview with me. But it's like, why did it ship like that? It's all very bizarre.
Yeah.
And I just think that this has been a long segment.
For sure.
Which is to say that me and Matt have just been in the murky abyss as we've talked about this. And that it is such a murky abyss, I think surely means that it's a murky abyss to develop.
Yeah, that's... I really wish we didn't have to talk about all this stuff the way we do.
Yeah.
But we have to.
That's the thing. A lot of people, they see this as just hating for the sake of it.
Yeah.
I think it's easier to talk about issues. It's way more of a discussion.
Yeah.
Than it is just to be like, oh yeah,
that's cool.
Nathri is good.
Yeah.
I really don't want to be talking about this stuff at all, but it has to be talked about, and that's why if you go to our clips channel, it looks the way it does. It's very begrudging.
Yeah, it's far from ideal. I think if I know, at least in my case, if I didn't think I could really love World of Warcraft, I would just be like, nah, done, see you later. But it lives entirely rent-free in my head at all times of day, because I'm constantly like, okay, what happened there? Where could you go with Torghast? Every time I'm playing like any other game, like especially I've been playing a load of roguelites, and I'm just like, oh, where's this in Torghast? Where's all this stuff?
Yeah.
Please.
This will be a really fun clip. I take pride in being a bad raider. I will log into raid. I'll be like, yeah, guess what, Dakor? I still have an eye level 158 conduit, and I don't have a leveled up legendary, and I'm also multiple renown levels behind where I should be. I will say that with a big smile on my face. And the reason is, I can play my class well enough that I can still easily produce the numbers that I need to in raid to be, a well-performing member of the team. And I basically take pride in saying no to those things and only playing the bits of World of Warcraft that I enjoy. Because at this stage, I'm just too damn old to waste my time doing that stuff. And any time that I can do that and have Dakor sigh at me in the very comedic, disappointed way that he sighs, that really does put a big smile on my face. And it's purely because I'm sitting there knowing that all of these, these people I'm talking to, they've complained to me about feeling like they have to do these things. And I'm just like, all right, well, I was near the top of the meters. I didn't do any of that shit, and I just had a great time. So, I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good right now.
You bellend.
Right? Yeah, it's totally a dickheadish thing. But it's like, that's been my response. I'm not gonna ruin the game for myself. Even if the developers incentivize me to ruin the game for myself. I'm just gonna be like, developers, no, I'm not doing that. I'm going to raid. I'm going to raid log, and I don't care what else you put in the game, as long as I can get an above 50 percentile parse, we're all good.
Nice one.
And that's that, Focus. There was a tweet by this guy, Traff, I think is his name.
Ah, yes, I know.
He's the guy, if you watch Marquez Brownlee, he did that icon pack that I think Marquez had in one of his videos, showcased, and the guy made so much sales. Just a simple tweet. He said, output does not equal time.
I believe it was ours, =, the line through it, output.
Yes, so ours does not equal output. Yep. And I really try to apply that principle. And when I apply that principle to World of Warcraft, it's like, what I want is output. The output that I want is a fun social gaming experience. And I can optimize for that. And I optimize for that by raid logging and being okay to take a few losses in terms of my character's optimization, because I'm not willing to ruin the game for myself just to get a few more DPS. And I think that is a tough thing for Blizzard, because they have consistently created incentives for people to ruin the game for themselves in order to get a few more DPS. And that is rough.
Yeah.
Benthic lottery, island grinding, artifact power grinding, etc., etc., etc. Stygia grinding.
Yeah, it's like my experience with Legion was very, very positive unanimously, but I'm not sure if my launch experience would have felt anywhere near the same had I not so much free time when I started playing that. I had obviously I was 12, 16 hours a day for a while at the launch of Legion, and I really enjoyed it. But thinking back, if I had 3 or 4 hours a day, I probably would have utterly despised it.
Really?
Yeah, but because I'm thinking about it, I am absolutely the sort of player that will, not for the sake of DPS, but for the sake of wanting to play World of Warcraft, I will ruin the entire experience myself. Because I spend so much time logging in and just screaming internally, why is there nothing I want to do? This is so frustrating. I really badly want to play this game. I love just running around and hitting buttons, especially on a couple of melee classes that feel good. I was like, please let me play the game. I really want to, but I log in and I'm like, there's nothing that feels even vaguely meaningful. Please let me waste all of my available time here, please.
Well, as Blackbeard says in chat, existence is pain. Oh boy, Blackbeard, that is a hardcore comment.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, David has just said here that WoW has become a single-player game that you can play with others if you choose to. It's like there's an issue there with your LFGs,
yes,
and all of that stuff. I actually think that WoW being a single-player game is totally okay as long as that stuff does not really ruin the social experience or create incentives away from playing WoW in a fixed social community, because as soon as you're playing with a community, then you have lots of long-term incentives that are playing upon you as a person, right? So you can't just be, well, like any of the people who end up in r/WoW being roasted for being absolute dickheads in Mythic Plus dungeons. The way to solve that problem is not to create anti-toxicity chat filters or, robust banning and reporting systems. Those are all perfectly fine things to do if you want to, but the way to do that is entirely by, incentives. And you want to incentivize people to play together where there's actually long-term stakes. So That's what that comment made me think about.
Yeah.
I mean, technically speaking, this is all still under the guise of why is 9.1 so goddamn late.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Which I think is really just, if you've listened to the last however long this conversation has been, it is just that World of Warcraft has developed in a bizarre way with so many interconnected dependencies and so many situations where the details have to be right for something to be shippable, that it just seems like shipping World of Warcraft is really hard, and there's consistently lots of blockers. You then add on to that COVID, making it harder, at least for some. There's some teams have seen big productivity increases with COVID. There are others that have seen big decreases. Yeah. I would say that Blizzard is an extremely, I'd say an extremely conservative company from what I've experienced. Yes. I obviously don't mean that from, political or anything like that, but they're very old school. Mm-hmm. I mean, as compared to other companies I've dealt with, just Blizzard have so much more bureaucracy. And that's just because, they formed as a company in a older time, and that's pretty obvious. So I'd imagine if anybody was to be hit by working from home, it's not the young hip startup or the big tech company that feels like a mystical cult. No, the company that's going to be hit the hardest is just the one that's more old school and how it gets its day-to-day ops done. And I imagine Blizzard would be a bit more in that camp. So COVID's obviously going to have hit them pretty hard. Yeah,
there's a bit of that when me and Jared were talking earlier, we kind of hit on this where I was trying to think how could COVID have hit them so much harder, and everything you say about their being kind of traditional obviously makes sense, especially the game's old. They probably have relatively old tools. They probably have they probably never actually considered super hard into prepping for working from home, remote access stuff. But I think a lot of that comes from some of it because they're old school, but I think a lot of it is because the Blizzard life on campus is so big,
massive.
It's if so much of your life is going to the campus and not living there per se, but that's where
people get close.
Yeah, that's where your life is centered around this campus. You have lots of just talking to people all the time. I think once you're if you're separated from what's effectively most of your working life and probably significant more of it, I think that would hurt specifically places like Blizzard significantly more, because that culture, it would almost be a culture shock not being able to experience all of that.
It really would be. So there's a lot of all the Blizzard camaraderie and stuff, is what food trucks are going to appear for lunch today. Yeah. You always see Blizzard employees tweeting about that. Mm-hmm. And I would not last a second. Because goddamn, some of those food trucks those Blizzard people get, cool, awesome. Mm-hmm. That's all really cool. Yeah. But it's that thing where, I mean, with the amount of money... Okay, so I spend less on my rent than I have seen Blizzard developers... pay for a roommate situation.
Yeah,
I have an apartment that is a duplex. There's a second floor in it. So whenever I'm forced to work from home, I mean, I have a bedroom, I have a large living room, I have a little recording sort of area in that living room, and there's a mezzanine where my gaming computer and some workout equipment is. For your average Blizzard person, not average, but for a lot, maybe actually, because you probably need a senior salary to be able to afford purely your own place. Yeah. A lot of Blizzard people are in, roommate situations, even though their age in years would really, in most other parts of the world, you wouldn't be in a roommate situation. Those are people, they have their bedroom, but their kitchen, their living room, that's a communal area with their housemates. So going into this big Blizzard campus where you've got your on-site Starbucks, your big cafeteria with staff making some pretty nice food, you've got these food trucks coming, you've got your company culture, you've got a world-class powerlifting gym area where a bunch of
nice.
I think it's Strongest Man competitors actually go there
really?
And train Blizzard people.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen these pictures of Helinka looking totally ripped, in the workout area at the campus. So that stuff's all really cool. Yeah. So it's just in California, you sacrifice so much of your own finances, so much of your quality of life. Because if you want to live near the Blizzard campus in Irvine, you need to pay a lot of money. If you don't pay a lot of money, you live a 45-minute drive. But that 45-minute drive is one that is very trafficky and horrible.
Yeah.
So you just have I'm just going to say, such a bad quality of life as compared to the part of the world we're in. I mean, we're Northern Ireland. We're not some fancy place, but we have got forest parks everywhere. I walk a few miles down my house. There are like 2 forests there. I go on a 5-10 minute drive. I'm at Tuckmona Forest Park. I do a drive in that direction. I can go hike Cave Hill. I can hike Black Mountain. I can drive to the Mourne Mountains. The place near my house is where they filmed a bunch of the ESO stuff in Game of Thrones. Benevna, really cool mountain. It's like there's so much there. And I walk out of my house, there is a shop in like very quick walking distance. There is multiple coffee shops for takeaway. I'm right beside a park. And even with all of that, my rent is still so cheap in comparison to the Americans. Or not the Americans, the people in that region of I guess, SoCal.
Yeah, SoCal.
And the reason why I bring this up is that somebody says not everyone wants to go to forests. Yeah, well, the good thing is there's actually, you mentioned a museum. We actually have a museum in one of our parks that is right beside my house. Beside that also is the student library. A quick walk into town, you can find a cinema. Not that that's, I mean, we are in a city that is fully featured as a city. And that just means that if you are, if you're a Blizzard employee, well, you're making all those sacrifices to be at Blizzard in terms of your finances, your quality of life. You can be in your 30s and be forced into a roommate situation. So when your campus is taken away from you, and that's going to really represent moving out of your apartment into a place with a lot of people, a lot of facilities, a lot of space, it's going to suck. It's going to be hard. I really feel for them. I would struggle.
Yeah,
I would struggle. I'd be behind schedule.
Yeah, that's mostly what I was thinking about. What is like why? And I guess the human angle is probably realistically it, because I was racking my head like how could it hit production schedule so bad? Do they really can they just not work from home? But they just clicked. It's like, oh yeah, they're probably all like kind of miserable living in Irvine, but without access to like what's ostensibly their life and all the cool stuff in it.
Yeah, it's rough. I wish Blizzard. Well, there's multiple people, including myself, have heard via a stork flew in and dropped an information baby in the night that at one point they were actually considering moving campuses because of a bunch of the issues that Irvine faces as a location, and they ended up not doing that. Of course. I don't know. I wish they did. Certainly from my time in Irvine, I was there. I was like, okay, well, this campus is cool. That orc statue, that's really cool. That workout area, goddamn, if you are into lifting things outside, the weather. I mean, hey, it's pretty hot too, and you've got an incredible cafeteria. They have these cool libraries full of board games and books and things. And it was just that thing where it's like, as I went around Irvine and people were like, oh, did you walk to that Taco Bell instead of drive? That was extremely dangerous. You shouldn't have done that. And then I've forgotten his name, Polish WoW fan site. Me and him were just like, whoa, dude, this is crazy. What's going on? How do people live here? Yeah, and there's a reason why a lot of those big SoCal companies have these humongous campuses. It's because that's where a lot of the stuff the life ends up having to happen.
Yeah, that's actually where they can guarantee like good setup for their people.
Yeah,
which is kind of, it's like,
so you take that away and you just have this humongous struggle for the people at Blizzard as humans, because a big part of their life has changed, and I would hazard to guess that would change more aspects of their life than it would for many people in many other locations in the world. And that's going to be really hard.
Yeah, and it's like it's not even specifically Blizzard's fault as an organization either, because what I guess the only thing they can do to solve these problems is either move, radically get involved with the politics of the area and solve all the problems, or pay their staff like 3 times as much.
From what I understand, a lot of people in California have wanted to change some of those things.
Yes.
And now they seem to be leaving. Though a lot of that is probably just because they get taxed a hell of a lot less the second they leave. So that's
so
always an incentive.
Yeah, so it's like they may be a powerhouse, but they can't. They're not exactly going to solve all of those local societal problems. It's just it's a byproduct of where they were.
I guess that's just why there's a lot of it's really hard, for them in this environment. And then the other thing is that we get so much more transparency in these issues. Apparently because Towley's mates talk to him, and then Towley told all of us. But then also because it's a live game, and it's like, I mean, if the patch doesn't come out, it ain't out, and we're like, oh, where is it? Instead of just God of War has been delayed till 2022.
Yeah.
Announcement, done. Players don't care because they're like, okay, I'll wait.
I'll just play something else, fine.
Whereas right now it's like, oh, I'll wait, but you kind of are also expecting me to pay money, and I also got a 6-month subscription, and I got my 6-month subscription to the game based on the patch cadence of previous expansions, and now I don't feel like I've got a good deal, and oh dear, now people are not. It's really, this would always be uniquely challenging for World of Warcraft, and we're just seeing that now.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's the delay situation. Justin Hagen said here, when do you think 9.1 will be released? My answer to that is... So my answer was June. And then after Towley informed us of what he had heard on his stream and the YouTube video that he made, I'm going to have to say August. Because at the end of the day, Towley knows more than I do. He said August. Happy to listen to the man. I think he's probably on the money.
Yep, just to sort of cap off that segment, now that I've solved audio, I will throw it back up for anyone who's just joined recently. I'll cap it off with this. Where am I going? Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Here's audio now.
Shadowlands is behind, folks. Ladies and gentlemen, Shadowlands is behind. 9.1, we might not see that till August. I asked someone over there, hey, how's, PTR looking for, 9.1? I got a shrug. How's June looking for 9.1 release? And literally was told June would be optimistic if 9.1 came out.
So there you go.
Yeah, and I think actually if you kept on playing that, he would mention August.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So yeah, folks, buckle your seatbelts. We're in for a ride of Castle Nathria and Prideful.
Oh, we did. I'm stupid then. Sorry.
Yeah, you just weren't listening. You said it
no,
before.
I'm just a dumbass. Now, there is one thing I do want to bring up. If you could just go to our clips channel.
Yep, sure.
Because there is something that, if you're sitting here and you're thinking, wow, what a bunch of cocks these guys are.
Oh, yeah.
One of the videos there is, we are hyped, that one. Right? And I just, it is worth mentioning here, like, that is a 15-minute long video of why we're actually very excited for patch 9.1. Right? So this is a thing of us sitting down and trying to analyze problems as best we can, because the thing that we're the most interested in is how you guys can all get a better experience for your hard-earned money, and how we can get, in a way, towards ground truth and perhaps work out some, some principles, right? So that is why, even though we say those things, we have a bit of content exists called Why I'm Excited for Chains of Domination, and I am. I genuinely am. I want to go into that new mega dungeon. I want to do another raid. Fantastic. But we also have to deal with the date. We just have. So there you go.
Yeah, it's the case. I like what you're saying about ground truth, where it's we're trying to do this without any sense of judgment or any sort of like casting assumptions or accusations of character or anything. It's just the more we engage with the truth, and especially look into these problems and talk about them, the more we're all informed to actually understand and engage with the game better, know what to expect, and make better decisions for it. Yeah,
there's little use for narratives and tribalism in any of this. It's just, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Let's analyze the stuff and not be dickheads about it. Or, when I say dickheads, I meant that in a very colloquial sense. I guess I just mean, being a straight shooter about it. Just, yeah, I mean, simple as that, really. So, yeah, right. I guess the other thing that we haven't got so far is, like somebody there, Martin, who just said, took your advice from the last video, sub cancelled, only message they hear. That's where I'd mention, one of the best ways to do anything is to vote with your wallet and actually fill in the exit poll, because whenever you cancel your WoW sub, they give you an exit poll. And I'd say that, if you're not doing a lot of gameplay now, cancel your subscription. Put that money into somewhere where you're going to enjoy it more. And then, I just said how I'm excited about 9.1, and Matt is as well. Then come back to World of Warcraft and then have a good experience. Don't force yourself through something just to breed resentment because your identity is, I am a World of Warcraft player, therefore I must always be playing World of Warcraft. No, you can be a World of Warcraft player and come and go as you please and get the best possible experience for your life. And that's the most important thing. So the other little bit of news, this caused a bit of a hubbub, I suppose, which is for Classic TBC.
Yes.
Where the mount was data mined.
Yes, that's right.
So the first thing I've got to say while Matt brings it up is, aside from anything, seeing Blizzard release an old mount, or, release a mount, but it's like an old poly TBC jank mount, I love that. Yeah. I just thought it was really cool seeing this data mined, TBC mount, and, like, it doesn't look like a modern thing. It looks like it's from the TBC. Now, that did get a lot of people... Is it that one, perhaps?
Yep.
I did get a whole bunch of people thinking, oh, no, this looks like a TBC mount. Is there going to be an in-game store in TBC? What's going on? Which, my gut reaction was, obviously no, they will be murdered for that. WoW Classic Wrath of the Lich King is the one that'll have the store mount. Because of course, the Sparkle Pony. But no, this is almost certainly the collector's edition. If this is only... Alright, this is only worth getting your knickers in a twist over if you also got your knickers in a twist over the collector's edition that they did for original WoW Classic.
The Alabaster ones?
Yeah, the Alabaster ones. Yeah. I am not that pissed off at this because this is just a standard collector's edition. So there was a bunch of drama. We didn't really engage in any of it. And now there is something to be said about, are they going to use this willingness for there to be changes that are in the spirit of the game and using that willingness to try to monetize the game further in a way that is not meshing well with the classic experience. A lot of people with the character cloning, the character boosts are very much thinking that. Those are all valid discussions to have. We, of course, had our, rather spicy reaction whenever that was announced at BlizzCon.
Yep.
But as for this, this is just the collector's edition. Like, it's not a big major piece of news, really, in my opinion. So, I'm really not sure what else there is to say about this one, but it is a news story that did come up. A lot of people were talking about it.
I think if I had anything to add, it would literally just be, I really wish Blizzard were significantly sharper at their official stuff, because there's so many problems they could solve by being ahead of data mining, because internally they know what's going up in the build. So it would be nice if they were a little bit sharper on PR to get this sort of just to nip these things in the bud.
Well, they obviously don't have enough staff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane that we could even say that about a company like this, but they, via lack of communication, run into so many easily predictable community uproars that it's pretty obvious that people at the company would know this stuff is coming. It's just because ultimately what they have to do is develop the game. There's not the spare time to do all of the nice to do things, such as explain this in advance so that there's not some sort of drama about it.
Yeah, it would be nice if whoever's actually watching these streams go to the build, just sending an email to Kaivax, like, Kaivax, here, sort this out quick, cheers, thanks.
Yeah. Maybe they just need a potential community It's just like a little form every developer has, and every time they're going to push something to the build, maybe they can like flag it as a potential community so that every time there's a PTR build, like I don't know, lore just gets this list of things the developers think could set the community off. That it would be nice if we got ahead of this.
Oh, that'll be a long list every single build. Like.
Yeah, and often in ways where it's actually unfair to be angry about the thing.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of times where things shift and change naturally in a testing process where, it's a PTR, so the whole point is that it's not ready for public consumption yet.
Yeah.
Worth mentioning that as well, to be fair to them. Like, this is one of those tricky things about being a live game with a very open and live public testing sort of process, which does make me wonder, like, what is that like for other MMOs and other MMO communities?
That's a very good point, because I don't believe there's much in the way of testing over at FF, and I mean there's very little public. Actually, it's just kind of like, here's what's happening, by the way. So I think they do more of a job of like obfuscating that.
Interesting,
because this is obviously, I actually think it is very good that we often get the transparency. We can sometimes solve issues before they ever actually make it to live. We can do a lot of like bug fixing that they don't have to do, which, sometimes you could go just hire more QA. You've got the money, but at the same time, massive scale testing will catch some stuff that like the community, need to actually catch. But I think it's pretty unique, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like the only places I can remember seeing like really open and honest testing of stuff ahead of time has been in like the early access and indie scene, where that stuff sometimes has gone wrong. Like with I think the one I remember is Darkest Dungeon adding corpses as actual physical items, and that just setting the place on fire for a while, even though it was a great decision.
Yeah.
But it was players who were involved before, like during the testing. Well, it was early access, but technically, testing of that game. They're like, nah. But yeah, so that's credit to them, I think. But
yeah, credit to them for that.
But sometimes it certainly has its drawbacks.
Yeah, I think a lot of devs must get frustrated at that, because they're like, well, I pushed this to the build in progress knowing it wasn't ready, but now it's going to be exposed on a data mining website and people are going to get an uproar about it, even though I already recognize the problem that players are going to have, and I actually have a fixed plan for the next build.
Yeah, but but I can't, I don't have the public availability or the ability to just go, yep, don't worry about this in this build, boys. Fix next one. Cheers.
Yeah. They
just sort of don't have that. Don't have the time to do that, probably. Knowing how busy they all are.
Yeah. So, that's that story. Yeah. Is there much else to cover?
I don't actually think so.
Yeah, it's that thing where, so little's happened in the actual game. There's other stuff in the WoW news episode that goes up tomorrow, like Nathria nerfs, Stone Legion generals. I'm sure they're thrilled that they made that fight. It's been a big thorn in their side.
Yep, and ours. And
less of a thorn in people's sides soon.
Yes.
Given the nerfs and stuff. So that's all interesting stuff.
Yeah, all good stuff.
Sure. But if there's really not much more to talk about that's interesting, I think maybe we should kick it on over to Control the Show, because the very kind and generous viewers have actually given us some great topics and things to talk about.
Okay, let's go then.
Yeah, there's one I'm going to start off with by RazorClaw999, who said, where can we track your game company for your game? That's a fun one to answer. It's one of those things where when big things are in progress, you really can't talk about them. And I say big relative to us. There's some people being like, oh, you're an MMO YouTuber. Clearly you're making an MMO. Absolutely not.
No.
The goal for us is to make relatively small to medium-sized role-playing games with a heavy emphasis on taking you to a new world, immersing you in a fantasy, and just focusing on art, focusing on script. I guess what I can tell you is that you know there is in our heads right now a game 1 and a game 2. You know, game 1 is pretty well along the way. I do hope to have exciting news for that relatively soon. Game 2 would obviously have to be after that. You know, you will know from the things we've shared publicly that game 1 is 2D. Now, it's actually not 2D. It's technically, it's literally 3D. If you go into a Unity scene and move the camera about, it's actually 3D compositions. And sometimes, you know, we'll sort of scope out something in 3D and then, you know, after that, like do drawovers and stuff to like sort of quickly test out new environments and things like that. But yeah, that is kind of that situation where all hands on deck for game 1. I mean, technically it is possible for you to find out what game 2 is and to maybe even find its cover art because NI Screen posted, they posted a few tweets, and that's all public stuff, of course. So yeah, I mean, game 2's different from game 1 in setting and theme, let's just say. And you know, all exciting stuff. Game 2 is 3D as well, so that's fun. And you know, a lot of people actually don't understand this. It is cheaper to do 3D than it is to do 2D in many cases. You would not believe how much work it takes to do a full set of poses for 8 characters, 2D, and then to have emote degradation. You know that our game is. You know, well, a big inspiration is Alfred Lansing's book on the Shackleton expedition, which I listened to as a kid. And basically the situation there was, you will have seen the Kaiju game, we'd show that off previously, and, you know, while I think we did get a lot of tone and mood and vibe, I think quite right for the experience we wanted to create, it would have been too hard and too expensive and all of that stuff. And it was we were too early on in our journey to actually get a big, complex, numbersy, combat-y game actually being at that quality level where I'd be comfortable with it. So after that, we were like, okay, if the focus for us, you know, the things that we know we can do quite well are sound design and narrative and art, then we will focus on those. So trying to, you know, make that core sort of role-playing game experience. So that's what's up there. I mean, there's exciting stuff. There's how many people? It's like 8-ish people. We've got a new person on for 6 months to a year, starting I think very soon. But we sort of signed off that, so that's exciting. Exciting, actually. It should mean that our emotes and our basically the state of our characters should be more gnarly as time goes on. We should be able to reflect narrative events more in in art with those enhanced resources. So that's quite fun.
Fantastic.
As for where to track the company, to really go into this question, when the time is right, there will be a website. And I can definitely tell you that my intention is to, if you go onto the, my intention is not to have the drama that follows Star Citizen be anything that we do. And game 1 is not crowdfunded. Currently, that is not the plan. But even with that being the case, I do want to do maybe every week, maybe every 2 weeks, proper feature videos. So, and that will be well-produced stuff. Really, I want to go ham and making incredible devlogs. So when the time is right, you will be able to track progress via that. But the time is not right now. And if we, if we did that stuff too early, it would be self-defeating, because at the end of the day, we've got to make a game, and making social media content and websites and all that stuff about a game, you can't let that take away from making the game until the time is right. And you've got the making the game bit down pat and your production worked out. And that is a lot of work. Then the public stuff can flow.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of similar to what we were talking about with Blizzard, where it's like these developers could be like, hello, here's specifically what we're working on, here's specifically what we're doing, here's all our plans to solve them. But that would take, like, I don't know how many hours a week that would take, and those would be better served actually just making more content. Yeah. So that's why we're like, we completely see that, like, they could do this, but it's probably not efficient by comparison. So just
Actually, there is a follow-up from Razor Claw on the same thing. So again, thank you. Who said, I meant more along the lines of pre-orders and stuff like that. So when can people like me who want to support your company help you? Number one, thank you. I mean, you've already supported us a whole bunch just in this stream. So
cheers, man.
Big thank you. As for that stuff, I mean, when the time is right...
we'll let you know. Don't worry.
There will be a time where there'll be a pre-order available. And, you know, there are interesting things there that if you're interested in game dev are something to talk about. Like, if we were to give the option of supporting the company more by purchasing it directly from our website, that could actually hurt the game in the long run. Because purchases made through Steam, especially if there's a review and a wish list involved, are good for the Steam algorithm. So there is a situation where if, let's just say it was a purchase directly from our website where we got 90% and then 10% went to customer service and payment processing. So we would get 20% more revenue from that purchase if it was from our own website. And that could be the wrong move to make, because even though Steam would take 30%, if it is better for the Steam algorithm, then that is what ultimately will be better for the game and the health of the company. And it is a pretty wacky thing that you could actually try to support a developer by purchasing on their own company website, and that will actually hurt the developer, because a lot of what impacts your sales for a game is your Steam algorithm placement. That is why you will always see indie devs, you know, double A's, I mean, everybody basically promoting the Steam wish list, because important thing number one, getting big Steam wish list numbers, and then it is the conversion rate from wish lists to purchases. And you have to get those things right, because if those things don't go right, Steam doesn't push your game. It's a bit like how you know, if you make a YouTube video and you don't title it and give it a thumbnail that's good, it kind of doesn't matter how, I mean, your video could explode because of word of mouth, but that's really quite rare. So, you know, it's all really kind of fascinating stuff. That's as much as I can really say at this stage, though. I mean, thank you. I hope you found that interesting. And say if you want to learn a little bit more about some aspects of game dev, follow Mike Rose on Twitter. He is, I believe, the founder of No More Robots, and he often will post like just tweets about, you know, numbers, what they're doing as a publisher, stuff like that. So if you want to learn more, real good place. So thank you for that. To move back to World of Warcraft, though, there was Joshua who asked if Kyrians can have wing transmogs. You know, he says that, so should my demon hunter. What race class transmogs do you want? So I think what that really is race class customizations that are unlockable. Now, what I'd say there is, and I think this would be humongous, if you could bring back the class order halls as a relevant thing, and then actually imagine if you could go back to Light's Hope as a paladin and get paladin cosmetic upgrades by doing cool paladin activities that are entirely based on the class fantasy of being a paladin. So maybe you could change your wings, maybe, you know, labrum, or, you know, your sort of holy books. You could get different holy books. I don't really know what it would be. I mean, for me as a hunter, it's obvious. Different quivers, you know, little survival knives, things for our belt, you know, maybe little backpacks. I think if they could do that on a very class basis, I wouldn't say spec fantasy, I'd say class fantasy.
Yeah, class for sure.
Boom. Boom. That would be just, you know, insert the perfection emoji, insert that here, because that would do so well, and people would be so big into that, I think.
Yeah.
Class fantasy works. Legion proved it.
Yeah, I think it's like those two things they can focus on, which are the things that people are actually like used to, which are class first and foremost, absolutely. But then you also have like race and faction stuff, which they kind of are starting to do a little bit with heritage armor, but they're a little slow on that in like by comparison to focusing on other things. So it's like if they could just nail getting class stuff and then maybe race stuff. I mean, there's a decent overlap there as well, because I think the one thing that people have always wanted since the dawn of time is why aren't night elf priests using light that's like moonlight colored? It's stuff like that.
Since
I think
the dawn of time, cavemen have won. Yeah,
yeah. It's the case of like blood elves should they have the option to like I don't know if they would. I mean, obviously the actual lore reason to get this sorted would be pretty difficult, but actually getting them to use Seal of Blood stuff, the visuals that are, you know, back from them tormenting the Naru to use its power by force. Just here's your spells, but they're a little bit more red than usual. Like green, I mean, this green fire, like.
Yeah, it doesn't take a massive amount of, okay, in some ways it's very easy to do that. You can just change some color values. But that said, seems easy in practice.
Yes.
It could be harder in the technicals.
It's
a lot harder in the technicals because we don't know how it's architected.
Yeah, it's probably actually pretty difficult overall. That's why they've only ever done it once. But it's like it's that general thing where give us more colors of the class mount, give us more variations of the class mount, stuff like that to try and make sure everyone has the ability to customize the way they kind of want to, and have things to not even just things to work towards, but actual like aspirations for the game.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty important. But
yeah, so I mean I think the response to that question basically is you know, that's what I think for a hunter, what you think for a paladin, and that would be so much better than a Kyrian transmog, a Night Fae transmog. I think the class fantasy is far stronger than the Covenant fantasy. Yeah. So sure. I mean, there you go. The more customizations, the better. If we can then, you know, move on to getting some armor tinting. You know, look, there is a future where a few more improvements are made and we get class sets back. But you do kind of wonder, like, class sets are obviously so much harder to do. Yeah. So much more work than doing the armor piece sets. You kind of do wonder how, you know, a lot of us thought, oh, we're clearly going to get so much more in the way of art assets once they no longer have to do class sets. And it doesn't feel like that yet.
No.
So that's probably not helped the game massively. But yes, customizations, more of them, that would be awesome. And then also, I guess, racial ones would be great. I think that the player's connection to the fundamentals of the Warcraft experience, which is like our races and our factions. Yeah. You know, I wish my reputation with the Exodar was more important.
Yeah, that's actually something I will continue up a little bit there, because I was just thinking, what would I want as a Draenei and as a Lightforce Draenei? What would I particularly want? And I think it's more assets that are available that are up to snuff for now, that fit that fantasy. Because I'm thinking about, like, one of my favorite transmogs that I have is using one of the very old purple XR emblem shields. Yeah. And it just looks kind of shitty. And it's the Crystalline Koresh, I think it is, whatever it is.
Oh, that one.
The crystal sword. I'm like, can I please have...
Yeah, that you got from the Grand Questing.
Yeah. Can I please have a beautiful, like, even like the more Lightforged Draenei oriented crystal color? Can I have weapons like that? Can I just have stuff that isn't all just, here's the Covenant ones? Because as much as I like having like a Kyrian transmog setup and using like the long spear for that, I'd really love to just have a full, hello, this is I am my race and class put together really well in 2021 as opposed to 2017, 2016, maybe earlier. Like,
oh well, I messed up the cameras.
Yeah, no, good.
Massively agree. Massively. I think that it's the bread and butter of World of Warcraft that I think is what we need to focus on. And the more that we go cosmic and spooky and very abstract and very, I say very intellectual, I don't mean that in a, you have to be 145 IQ to enjoy Rick and Morty, but in a way where, you know, the lore is less like, where the lore is just so abstract and technical and speculative and conceptual. You know, I actually really love that stuff. I do enjoy it a lot, but it needs to be counteracted with that, like, the roots that tie us to the world. And I think that is our races and our classes.
Yeah, we bring this stuff with us into the cosmos, as opposed to just we land there and there's nothing with us. Yeah. Having that, like, constant connection would be useful.
Yeah, and it's like, thinking about the heritage armor, I mean, I thought heritage armor would have been way better if we got new reputations for you know, for our cities, for our factions, or just stuff to actually do for them. But even just that, they added them in, and there are a whole bunch of people who rolled up new tunes just to get them. So yeah, the more of that stuff, the better. So big think. Next up, then. Next up, where are we next up? We've got, how would you feel about a defection system? Players could choose a challenging campaign to join the other side. All racials available for both factions while keeping the factions intact. So basically, what CW is asking for here is a way for us to change factions in a similar enough way to how you change a covenant today.
By being a goddamn traitor.
But obviously in a way where a human could be in the Horde.
Yes.
Which is fundamentally very, very, very different.
Yeah.
And I guess it's a massive expansion of the mercenary system idea.
Yeah.
There's one reason that's not going... Okay, there's a humongous number of reasons.
Yeah.
I can tell you one reason why it'll never happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can get a paid faction transfer.
Yeah.
And that earns a lot of money. I remember when my guild moved from Shadowsong EU. We were Blades of Light, Shadowsong EU. We then, I think, called ourselves Recall on Draenor EU. And we moved from Alliance to Horde and to a new server. Now, I have an attachment to my main.
Yep.
So as much as turning my Draenei into a Blood Elf hurt, it was the move to make because I'm sticking with my old main, a Hunter. That cost me like 45 quid. I actually realized it was basically just as the same price to get a max level or a level boost.
Yep.
That's why that's never going to happen. Now, I think what they may do is a mercenary mode where you could play with the other faction. I think Ian alluded to that being a possibility in some of those BlizzCon interviews. I wonder what, how much the racials and stuff would factor in balance-wise. And it's just that sort of thing where, as a heroic writer who's not really interested in Mythic, like, I would dabble in Mythic if we happened to have the roster.
Yeah.
But I'm not at that tier of gameplay interest where I'm thinking about racials, other than, remembering to use my Lightforged Pew Pew.
Yep.
That you could say there's some balance concerns, like could you make this ultimate giga comp of the best ally and horde racials or something like that, and would that really mix up Mythic gameplay? Hard to say, probably would. So there are reasons like that, but I think a fundamental blocker to a permanent faction change would be the paid service. I think they will be willing to let that be a bit more of a soft barrier though, just in the name of allowing friends to play with each other.
Yeah, I think so. I think the racial balancing wouldn't be too big an issue. Maybe they would like put it on like a little why we won't do this on a to-do list or whatever, like a pros and cons list in the office. I don't think it'd be too big a deal, but I think more importantly, and this is something I've been thinking about for a while, I think it's like the technical side would be a little bit more important, because the way you can't see horde characters if you /who them. I feel like there's an awful lot going on in the world and how servers are set up and how characters are set up that I think they would have a massive, because especially if you think of how the game was probably made in the first place, they probably never imagined having no factions. So I feel like there'd be massive technical problems that might stem to the very, very root of what a character looks like in data form. I think that might actually kind of impact that, especially if you're swapping around a couple times. It's like, I definitely think race is probably tied to faction a little bit too hard in data for that. And then it's part of why I'm kind of concerned about the mercenary mode a little bit as well, in terms of like how you can do it overall in like just in the world, or if you're joining people on a different server, because you can't invite a horde to a group of your alliance. So I feel like that's actually probably got like a really, really, really deep root, even though it sounds simple.
How does it work for mercenary mode then?
Because it's all instanced.
Oh, okay.
It's instanced and match made.
Yeah.
As opposed to pre-matched and then instanced. But the fact that you can't set up a group of alliance and horde and then mercenary in, I feel like there's something really fundamental there that would be like a huge technical challenge for them. Maybe.
Yeah. It's interesting stuff.
Yeah, I would love to spend like a couple days in. It's hard to say actually, because I was trying to think where. Because I think like their DevOps would be super interesting. All their network operations would be incredible. Because I remember you telling me
Their
about
mission control room that I saw at their campus, so cool.
Yeah, I would love to spend time there, but I also love to like sit down with the class designers and balancers. But then also like the more tactical stuff. Oh gosh.
Yeah, it was fun because like it was Lore, so it was Lore giving us the tour, and he was just like, here's the live ops room you've heard about. It's really cool. Can't let you in though, because I mean obviously you couldn't. So we were all just like standing outside peering in at this, one of the coolest battle stations you'll ever see, with all these network engineers. You're like, oh, this is the architect of the Matrix is in there. This was so cool, so cool. Yeah, there's a quick follow up from Razor Claw, who I mean again, my God, thank you. Said some of what I did is just to support you in your company as a thank you for the years of YouTube content you've done. To which I say, thank you so much. And we're making moves on the YouTube side to make more evergreen content. I think a lot of it is stuff that, the algorithm won't make it pop. But I think for those of you who are here for the long haul, I really hope you love it. Certainly lessons learned from the Nazoth video where, we got a bit more spooky and creative. And then on the game side, like game 1's trucking on real good. I think we'll be able to hit the ground running in game 2. There is a bit of a question, game 2, we could do it at multiple different budgets, which would change its scale.
Yes.
So there'll be some interesting things there, but like and the reason why we'd be sort of slow out of the gate is because we want to actually hit it right with game 1, and then after that we just want to be delivering really great content that is fair and reasonable in its business model and is not doing any bullshit.
Yeah,
So,
I think the way to describe it is we're spending so much time trying to actually set up the factory and build all the machines that will do all the stuff, as opposed to just trying to make something quick. That's fundamentally it. So I big plans and hopes in terms of getting stuff pumped out pretty quick after this fairly long warm up period.
Yeah, and we're not trying to make games that everyone will like. We are, it's the whole 1,000 true fans concept. Yes. I would rather make a game that, a smaller amount of people absolutely would love and would tell their friends about than I would, just sitting around being like, all right, team, how do we make this appeal to more demographics and stuff? You're like,
yeah,
that's not how you do art.
Let's bring the balanced focus group in and show them all this stuff. See what they think.
Yeah, I feel like the default of focus group being mentioned is just... I think that is an out the back and gotten rid of. Because, anywhere focus groups go, it just seems to ruin things. It's like, I'm sure that Joss Whedon's Justice League focus grouped better than what Snyder's would have. But it seems like Snyder's, as much as it has its pros and it definitely has its cons, it seems like at least to somebody, it was exactly what they wanted and made them very happy. I'd rather we got more things that were more targeted at a small audience who would love it than just less things but mass market and big.
Yeah, I think especially if you try to keep in mind that games fundamental. Well, oh god, this is such a loaded thing to say. Games are art, damn it. That's the bottom line. But you'd rather have two things that one person each loves rather than two things both people like. I think that's better.
Yeah,
it's better.
I think that's definitely something that we hold dear. And that's something that's very important in the indie space as well.
Yeah, of course.
Because you can't just go out there and make a game that you think everyone will like. Your best way, because you're an indie, you don't have a marketing budget.
No.
You've got to make something that somebody loves enough to tell their friend it was a great story that they enjoyed. And maybe they want to see what choices their friend made and how that changed the game. So, we got another super chat from Rally, who says, the Legion patching 77 days, patch every 77 days, was amazing. But don't you think that the sacrifice of WoD's third raid allowed them a unique run-up to Legion? The Legion is an exception because it added time from WoD, not the standard. So this is a big old can of worms. It's very interesting. This is not something that anybody at Blizz told me. It was stuff that Blizzard people told people that I know and trusted at the time and talked to. There was a Shatrath raid planned. The reason why Urel You know, Urel just, a lot of people liked her, and then a lot of people are like, oh wow, that went Mary Sue real quick. How'd she get so powerful and didn't, you know, she didn't earn that?
Yeah.
Well, that's because we got, we got Act 1 of Urel's arc. We got Act 3 of Urel's arc. We didn't get Act 2. There was supposed to be, there was a different plan. From what I understand, it was like Iron Horde raids, and then an Iron Horde raid around like, you know, or maybe Legion-y, but Shatrath raid. Yeah. And I think it was then maybe supposed to be the Hellfire. Not 100% sure what it was supposed to be, but there was supposed to be a Shatrath raid. That was killed because of the WOD response.
That's so tragic.
So, yeah, you know, you are right, Rally. Legion was unique in that way. The question I'd say is, was Mists of Pandaria unique? Now, it was unique in having a 14-month patch 5.4. That was unique.
Brutal.
And certainly whenever we see Ray D tier as the tombstone in your garrison, you basically just feel like you're being taunted for buying the product you've just bought. Was not a cute joke, Blizz. But, you know, we got 5.1 soon after MOP. 5.2, we got the Dino Island that had your, you know, getting your bones in Undesta. We got a multi-week storyline. We got multi-week island progression. We got the Trove of the Thunder King. We got a really big, awesome new raid. We got Warlock Greenfire. Then we got patch 5.3. I definitely like 5.3 more than most people because I thought it was interesting and experimental. And then 5.4, I mean, we got a great raid and we got the Time the Sile, which even though the Time the Sile was asset reuse of the Jade Forest tile set, it was, I mean, that's just the place you want to be.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. And that all worked out really well. You know, in that period of active patches, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Same goes for Legion. And I'd basically say that, yeah, you know, that was unique stuff in the run-up to Warlords of Draenor. Or, sorry, the run-up to Legion, because they axed so much of WoD, and they obviously moved on to Legion a bit earlier because they knew they needed a big winner. But I feel like that Legion amount of content is what should be standard based on how much people pay for the game.
Absolutely. This is something I've been waiting to say for... well, this is technically an unfair comparison, but I was thinking about it earlier today. Genshin Impact's free to play. Obviously, it relies on whale money big time, but the rate of content they have been blasting out has been completely insane. That game's on, I think, 1.4 now or soon, which included an entire dating sim element for a couple characters. And that game's been out for 6 months, I think. 6 or 7 months. It's completely insane, and it's got no asking price. Obviously, whales make up for that.
I mean, adding a dating mini game to your gacha game seems like a way to make infinite money.
Oh yeah, of course. I think it's revenues over $1 billion on mobile now. But anyway, I think I agree that it should be standard. Absolutely. It's just unacceptable now for content to be not coming out fast, and not even just like purely from the consumer standpoint, from the competitive standpoint. They're losing to everyone.
Simple as that.
I think that's
ultimately,
the part.
fairness and context is irrelevant.
Yeah.
What matters is competition in the market.
Yeah.
And what other people are doing and the other places you can go. I mean, I remember for the news channel covering, it was people saying that, like, you know, was it like the Netflix's real competitors Fortnite, or like Fortnite's real competitors Netflix?
It was Netflix complaining about, I think, was Netflix complaining about video games? I think it was.
Yeah, it was basically the point was that everybody's competing for attention and
attention
eyeballs.
Yeah.
And if World of Warcraft feels like it's getting slower and slower and slower, and even if the market is just giving you more and more and more options, then World of Warcraft kind of loses by default if that trend continues.
Yeah.
And as Towley said, Blizzard's own developers, apparently some of them anyway, think the 9.1 will be so late that people will be like jaded against it by the time it comes out. Yeah. And I mean, that just tells you all you need to know.
Yeah, especially if people could continue playing with nothing to do and get angry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like Callie Glove says, then why didn't BFA spur the same sort of reaction? It's almost as bad, if not just as bad.
That's
interesting. I'd say that, you know, 7.3 was 3 new zones. It was like pretty big. They tried to make it feel like a mini expansion.
Yeah.
8.3 was reusing 2 zones with some of the worst world content we had seen.
Yeah.
Like, you would have taken Tanan Jungle of WoD over those, what they did with Uldum and the Veil.
Definitely not the person to say that to, because I actually really like Tanan.
Fair, yeah. Yeah, BFA was not cut short as brutally.
Yeah.
But I think that BFA's storylines, I mean, the way that N'Zoth was done so dirty.
Yeah.
I mean, they took the cool Lovecraftian, cosmic horror, and they made it lame and boring and fast and something you went through basically without noticing.
Yeah.
Is that how any of us thought that Nyalotha would look? I mean, you look at that raid. That raid is like, make an entrance, make this bit, flip it over there.
Yep.
The raid was
mostly Skybox.
mostly Skybox.
Yeah.
That's not what Nyalotha should have been.
No.
I imagine they planned the big Old God finale to be BFA's answer to Argus.
Yeah.
And compare that to what we got.
Yeah. I think I actually have a decent answer for, I guess, 2 things. One is how cutting WoD short set Legion up for the 77 days absolute blast of just content, and why that didn't happen after BFA. And to start with the BFA point first, I think what happened actually was, instead of making the same decision they made in WoD, which was, what can we remove? Can we just remove the middle and then be done with it? I think that was more feasible to them, so they made that decision. But with BFA, 8.2 solved 8.1, 8.0's problems, but they couldn't remove 8.2 because they were in complete triage mode immediately. They didn't cut off the limb. They tried to save it.
Yeah.
So they didn't actually buy themselves a load of time for Shadowlands. They
I
kind
think
of did a little bit in the middle, where they needed 8.3 to happen, and they needed 8.3 to happen. They needed 8.2, especially because all the story wasn't necessary. Could you imagine if 8.3 didn't have 8.2?
Yeah, I mean, even look at how the faction war ended.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so lame. The actual quest content of 8.2.5 was so lame.
It's terrible.
You basically spent as much time sitting watching a movie as you did playing the video game. It's pretty, I mean, the CDev team will have been working on those big cinematics long in advance. So that's the content that's easier to lock in and get production schedule going for. It's then telling that the in-game, pairing of those cool cinematics was so lackluster. And yes, it's that thing where Legion was awesome, and then some of the wrong lessons were learned from Legion, which meant that BFA fell over, and then they were in triage mode for so long. They were triaging the launch of patch 8.3 while they were in Shadowlands development, and shortly after they were finished triaging that, COVID happened.
Yeah.
As much as we can talk about how this sucks as customers, can you imagine the dev experience there? Everything went wrong. And it didn't just go wrong oh dear, whoopsie happened, we're going to get over it. No, it went wrong from the start of 2018.
Yeah.
From BFA Alpha to now, they have had consistent issues.
Yep. Some internal, some completely out of their control.
Yeah. 3 years. 3 years in the ring, just taking punches.
Yeah.
We can pause our sub and come back later.
Yeah.
But that's their day-to-day reality.
Yeah.
Hopefully companies, what's the stress hormone?
Oh God, cortisol.
Yeah. So the way you can get is it a Dex or something? The
no idea.
constant blood glucose monitors that just output to an app in your phone.
Oh.
Imagine if you had a constant cortisol monitor installed, a little chip in all the Blizzard employees. I've got to imagine for the WoW team, it's just been very high for a long time.
Sure.
And I don't mean that in some sort of way to beat them up or anything. I mean that as a way that just to say to everybody that, you know, as much as there are a lot of issues to talk about, god damn, you gotta show the empathy. You gotta think about their experience, because can you imagine just being in 3 years of constant issues and constantly being in the back foot? I mean, you know, we still have to say the things that we say, and those are very inconvenient for the devs, but at the same time, we have to recognize the dev realities that have happened.
Yep. The truth doesn't care about empathy, although we absolutely should. I think that's
yeah. It's like that ruthless competitiveness of the market doesn't give a shit. It's just going to grind through people to get the results. We still need to think about the people who get ground through.
Yep, absolutely.
There is a question here from 10S, another super chat. So thank you, 10S, who says, Draenei are the original paladins, right? Not humans. That's really fun.
Okay.
Because it can devolve into semantics about what you consider a paladin, because it really is predicated on light and how it works.
I think it is mostly a semantic discussion of what a paladin is, because I imagine, as far as we're fully aware, as far as our history of Azeroth and the cosmos is, I think they definitely were, because they're the closest thing we know to a precursor race. They almost basically are. Like, there's the Titans, and then the Draenei are like the oldest beyond that, I think, or close enough to it.
Dreadlords,
yeah.
I imagine the Dreadlords are a lot more ancient, because the Dreadlords were around whenever Sargeras... Like, the Dreadlords were around... I should probably go to wide. The Dreadlords were around before Sargeras fell to the Burning Legion.
Yeah, so they're definitely well older. I guess they may have been the first paladins, based on if they actually engage with the light. But as far as I think we can be sure, the Draenei are the first paladins. They maybe not. Humans developed paladinness, developed the art of being a paladin. They're wielding the light separately. So it's kind of, at least I would hate for that to be a retcon where the light power actually came from thing. But I think everything that's used the light fundamentally has figured out the power on their own.
Yeah.
Outside of the Blood Elves, who used the Naru for it first and then learned to wield it themselves. So Draenei were definitely paladins before humans were, but there's no link between them.
Yes.
They all just kind of came together as a thing.
I guess is basically, to be a paladin, you have to have enough belief and faith in the light that you can wield it as a weapon. Be you a Knight of the Silver Hand or a Scarlet Crusader. Yeah. So that would mean that any alien on any planet who felt this force, you know, this light binding things together, or however it works, and believed and had faith in that and developed a religion or whatever. It doesn't even need to be a formal religion, but just developed enough around that to have faith in it, then they were a paladin. So, I mean, who knows? Like, some random hyena 17 parsecs over there maybe got a wise idea about the light, and suddenly the hyena, I don't know, a big old... That's obviously reducing it to absurdity to make the point. Any alien who believed and had faith was the first paladin. Yeah. So, probably not humans, because we know Draenei existed like 25,000 years in the past.
Yeah, so I think... I'm trying to think, could the first ones maybe have been paladins first? Or one of them maybe, but...
Well, they created the light, so they wouldn't, I think, have they wouldn't have the faith required to use the light in the way that we would.
But they force it.
Yeah, if they created the light, then it's obviously power that they can harness, just in a very different way to how we would.
Yeah, so that's I guess it is semantics again over what a paladin is, because Blood Elf paladins, were they paladins if they forced it instead of believing in it?
Yeah, they were scummy leeches.
Yeah, they were leeches, but they were paladins, so it's
yeah,
that's a fun question to think about. I'm definitely going to start looking at the minus 100,000 years segment of the timeline after this and see if I can find anything fun there. But
yeah, there's another super chat from Balshazar. Blood Elves and Draenei going to miss not being a warrior belf. Yeah, I think a lot of people would maybe not remember that Blood Elves couldn't be warriors initially.
But why?
I mean, as for but why, they became so dependent on the Sunwell for sustenance and power and all of that stuff that they physically diminished.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the lore there.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So
I forgot that was...
That's why, if you compare... I mean, I think Night Elves are really cool.
Yeah.
Because, like, if you look at their musculature, they are shredded.
Oh, yeah,
absolutely shredded. And they're also tall. So if you put it's that thing where... because we experience the game so like we're armored up like battle tanks that we can barely compare characters.
Yeah.
But if you take a 4-scale Belf, no, not Belf, yes, Belf and Nelf,
Yeah.
that is like in a fist fight, that night elf will thoroughly shred that blood elf any day of the week. They are taller, they are stronger, they have better reach, their legs are more powerful, they've got more muscles to drive power from. So that's why, blood elves couldn't be warriors. So as the Highborn, they were, so hooked in magic and doing all of that. They were then cut off from their source of power. And basically, slowly over time, they diminished and diminished and diminished. Their energies, etc., were being sustained via the Sunwell. In a way, they got more disconnected from nature, from their natural selves, and that led to a diminishing of them as a group, to the point where I guess technically speciation happened.
Yes.
I guess basically speciation. I mean, who knows? I don't know what happens when a Nelf and a Belf bang. I don't know if that will produce a fertile child, because I think that's one of the definitions of speciation. Who knows? But the effects of the Sunwell. So I guess that's what they get for being a bunch of coke fiends.
Alright, brutal. I think we all remember Ruinous too well if you didn't say that. But, no, that's interesting. So they couldn't be warriors. I can't remember what class they launched with beyond like paladins. Like paladin mage was warlock and rogue.
Belf, TBC. It was generally more. It was stuff that did not.
Yeah, it wasn't
involve physical strength.
Interesting.
So blood elves could be paladins, hunters, rogues, priests, mages, and warlocks, which is kind of funny because if you ever look at somebody who wields a bow a lot, one of their arms will be shredded beyond belief.
Yeah.
Maybe
they used guns.
Oh yeah, that sort of equalizes it. So basically blood elves, they really didn't. They if they were physical, it was sneaky. Instead of a night elf who could just beat clean shite out of you.
Yeah.
Because if you look at a night elf and model viewer, they're ripped.
Yeah. Either sneaky or bolstered by the light that they stole. Thieving bastards. Yeah.
Yes. There we go. We've insulted the most popular race in World of Warcraft. Yes. Fantastic.
Oh, God.
So, okay. Where are we next? Can you talk about the drums of battle in classic TBC and Blizzard's supposed change that actually just made the whole situation worse? Sorry if you already did. From Skyrage 1. So this is a news story that I don't know a massive amount about.
Me neither.
So perhaps you do a read and I'll do a think.
Yes.
We'll get to the bottom of this.
Okay.
So, I mean, we have a perspective here of fresh eyes, so we can sort of come at it blind.
Let's throw this up then. Okay. So drums had a cast time and smaller radius in the first few patches, which limited their effective use. Leatherworking was an unattractive profession, so the drums were improved in 2.3. So drum rotations was added in later TBC encounters. So they're going to implement items in their 2.4.3, but they want to introduce greater drums as a new item. Okay, so they're... Okay. So the original drums are going to be the shit version from the start, and then they're going to bring a new item instead of changing the item's properties. So that actually fits really well into what we were talking about earlier in the stream, which was enforcing the experience.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a marked change from how they implemented Classic, where they went, sorry, these items are new, deal with it, or in their newer form, deal with it, figure out what changes you need to make on your end to do that. But in this one, they're like, yeah, leatherworking was shit at the start, so leatherworking's going to be shit at the start. It'll get good later, as needed. So that's very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I could give a better response here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually weaker than they were before for the uncommon ones. Okay.
So is their goal basically to give you like that drums gameplay but earlier and then to have the real big tasty one come in with ZA?
Yeah, but I guess that, I mean, Warhead's analysis is that it's just going to make them more annoying to use and make everyone be leatherworking so they can get that, like, drum
Right.
rotation from the get-go.
Yeah,
So-
so they wanted the drum rotation gameplay loop as a part of team play in competitive content, and they
Yeah.
wanted that from launch, so they're giving you this weaker, worse version of it, and then they're going to give you the more traditional TBC experience of it later on.
Yeah, from Zulliman.
Okay.
Yeah.
That seems, honestly,
Interesting.
that seems needless to me.
It's
Especially in a world where they're going to be shipping pre-nerf raids.
yeah, it feels kind of like a problem that had no solution, but they solved it anyway. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Most of my reaction is, but why?
yeah. So when Zulliman releases, Burning Crusade Classic will finally match the original Burning Crusade drums. That's
interesting.
yeah. I don't even know where to begin to think about this.
Well, I think what it basically just means is leatherworking will be better from the start, but now you will have to do not literally have to, but maybe feel
Yeah.
like you have to do a more annoying version of the drum rotation from the beginning instead of none at all. So is it worth creating this lesser gameplay loop just to have leatherworking be a bit more relevant?
Well, I guess the problem isn't that leatherworking's being a bit more relevant. It's that they're saying, "Oh, min-maxers, all just go leatherworking. Here you go,
Yeah.
and we'll give you some progression through that." But that's very interesting.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most we can really get out of that. And that we don't have a perfect answer here is actually why I think we're both really interested in playing classic TBC.
Yeah.
Because for us, the live game is just something we know completely like the back of our hand,
Yeah.
right? We get it, we think about and analyze it on a daily basis. Whereas, I mean, it's like why I'm intentionally not playing TBC beta, because I just want to go in there fresh and in a way, recapture my launch experience, but now with my brain that knows how to think about World of Warcraft because I'm not a child.
So you get a second run at it, basically.
Yeah. A second run so I can get an experience that I always thought was neat but didn't understand and also didn't have.
Yeah.
This doesn't seem humongously appealing to me, but it doesn't seem super important to me, but I can understand how if you're humongously into TBC, something like this could be frustrating.
Yeah, it's...
I mean, if you feel like you have a new raid chore to do, I don't know.
That's very, very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's probably time to move on.
Yes.
We do have from WoW Dubbers. Do you think Arthas is coming back in Shadowlands, eh? So do you think Arthas is coming back? I've lost it. I've lost the question. Yes. Do you think Arthas is coming back in Shadowlands? If so, how bad will they butcher the experience of seeing that character again?
Well, that's certainly an opinion going in.
Little bit of a leading question
Yep.
there, but I can see why that would be a leading question.
Absolutely.
Blizzard actually knows this too, because anytime somebody's asked them about Arthas, they've been like, no comment, and we also know we can't mess that one up.
Yeah.
They get it, that if you mess up Arthas, then oh dear.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people would have opinions about the changing of Arthas's agency with the helm and stuff like that as time has went on.
Including us.
So, right. Question 1. Will Arthas return?
Yes. Unequivocally. But I guess the real question is, what form does he return in? Does he return as, child Arthas in this touching scene with Uther being repented? Does he return as, a full agent, capable completely of his own agency? Does he just show up after being dropped in the maw? Do we save him and he's like, I am Paladin Arthas back? I can't believe what you made me do. Or does he show up as this kind of real torn wreck of a person? It's because we don't really know what state he is actually in the Shadowlands. Obviously we know he's there. They wouldn't pick him up and drop him into the maw and not have us see him again. So there's so many possibility, and there's so many of them that can feel awful but maybe be executed okay, that I mean, the answer, we'll see. I'm like, of course.
Yeah. Ner'zhul.
Yeah.
Like, they confirmed
Yeah.
in our interview that Ner'zhul's returning in the next patch.
Yeah.
Now, if Ner'zhul is in play, I'd say that adds credence to the idea of Arthas being in play because, you know, there's hints that Ner'zhul was working on his own plans and was being a bit of a devious rascal, and that Arthas pretty much came in, ruined all of his plans, and then got just sort of jailered anyway.
Yeah.
So there's going to be stuff there. I think that the most that we know about Arthas is that he woke up from a long and horrible nightmare.
Yes.
And then he was picked up by Uther and Devos and dropped into the maw.
What a lovely
So
experience.
yeah, you know, he was sad after waking up from a nightmare and then got dropped into the crash for naughty people.
Yeah.
And we have no idea since, or, you know, what's going on since. Arthas is... There's many people who should be pissed off at the jailer.
Yes.
Arthas definitely is one of them.
Of course, yeah.
The jailer orchestrated a plan to co-opt Arthas's dedication to his people and twist that dark, and then try to use Arthas to prepare the world for consumption by him once he could make himself be free. That was the plan. It was for the Lich King. This has been confirmed to me by Blizzard in our public interview. You know, there's a little bit of free will from Ner'zhul. Jailer's pissed off with that. There's a bit of free will with Arthas. Jailer's pissed off with that. That's why he just MC'd Arthas, or MC'd Anduin.
Yeah.
But that means that Arthas is bound to be pissed off at the jailer.
Yeah, that's a really fun way to think about it, that it's like he took everything and turned it dark, because obviously everything that they did with how the Lich King was like set up, all of Terranus' dialogue, I mean, everyone knows the day you were born, the very forest whispered the name Arthas, all of the you'll be a great king someday, all of that stuff from that cinematic that really resonated with everyone is basically like, if Arthas was, to use numerical terms, like if Arthas was projected to be a very, very big number in terms of influence, it's just that there was a big minus put in front of that by all of what the jailer and Ner'zhul did. So there's this absolute massive chasm between who he could have been and who he ended up being. So I feel like there's going to be a big move to try and, especially considering all of the similarities between him and Anduin. I think the general flow will be Arthas will in some capacity enable Anduin to be who Arthas could have been.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a big sort of through line for Arthas's vague redemption of sorts. I think that's
It's really tricky because to me that actually sounds like that would be a really good payoff.
Yeah.
And it would be authentic to Arthas's intent and a whole bunch of his character.
Yeah, he
Now that said, it is basically from what I understand, Arthas had little nudges in the wrong direction when he was the wielder of Frostmourne, and that, you know, we do literally know Frostmourne's first victim was him.
Yeah.
From what I understand, the mind control really happened with the Helm.
Yeah.
Or not the mind control, but, you know, the jailer's big dominating influence was the Helm.
Yeah.
So the Arthas that killed his dad, did all those terrible things, there's a lot of Arthas still doing that.
Yeah.
That is canon. From what that is the I can't definitively say that's canon because Blizzard haven't definitively said, but based on Steve Denuzer's responses to me, that is my read of the situation. So, you know, I don't want this redemption because Arthas Menethil is a kinslayer.
Yeah.
You know, even though the culling of Stratholme was the right thing to do in a way, Arthas, you know, if something really rough like that has got to be done by a character who you're supposed to like, that character has got to be shown to be torn up by that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like even, say, Battlestar Galactica, you know, near the pilot, where, you know, Saul has there's going to be an explosive decompression that will hit the fuel lines, the ship will be lost, everyone will die. So what the thing that has to be done is that fire needs to be put out. You can only put that fire out by venting the ship. Venting that part of the ship and hoping that the people in the ship had their protective gear on so they could survive being in the, you know, cold dark of space. Now, that worked, and he gets to be a redeemable character because it's one of the many reasons why he's a alcoholic. And, you know, he knows it's the thing that has to be done, but it causes him so much pain, and you see other characters, you know, under him chew him out for it, and it just really works. Whereas, you know, with Arthas, it's like he was pretty quick to cull that city. So I don't think Arthas deserves a redemption. We're like, Arthas, you know, I just trundled down the wrong path, and then a big, weird space dude in bizarre S&M gear with his oddly defined nips out took him down the wrong direction. Per kid. Can't be that.
No, it can't be. It can't
But Arthas can have a Darth Vader moment.
be. Yes. Yeah.
And I think that's the way to think about this. Darth Vader got a bit of a redemption, but not in a way that absolves him of the awful things that he did.
Yeah. It was kind of like he turned the right direction at the last moment, and that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. At the final moment where he could make the right choice, he was able to. Yeah. That is a redeeming factor, but it is not redemption. Yeah. That's what should happen with Arthas. And I feel like if Arthas can do something that is for the good of Anduin and for the bad of the jailer, where he can acknowledge that he made a bunch of awful decisions that then led to him being a pawn of a terrible evil, that really shows his agency in that, which his agency was there, then they can bring him back and they can do it well. But I think even if they do it well, a bunch of players will be angry because they don't understand the story. And I'm not saying that in a way that is being aggro towards players.
Yes.
I am saying that in a way where keeping up to date with the specifics of WoW lore and the details that make the difference is a quest in and of itself. So most players only get the highlight reel of the big cinematics and big moments. Whereas if you look at the burning of Teldrassil, as portrayed in game, you don't understand the lore. Simple as that. If you played through the Burning of Teldrassil and the War of Thorns campaign in World of Warcraft, the video game.exe, you do not understand the lore. And it's not your fault. You know, the book's lying around here somewhere, but you need to read A Good War and the other novella. I mean, I actually really enjoyed that. I thought they were a good read. I was reading them in the coffee shop doing a Sylvanas lore series like 2 years ago. Maybe it was less. But it's just that thing where those events basically play out a little bit differently, and differently in an important way in the novelization of those events. Such that if you've only seen what's going on in game, you will not understand Sylvanas, you will be confused, and more of her actions will seem like they come out of left field and make no sense. And that's not your fault, because you just played the game. You know, it's Blizzard's fault for taking the details that matter and putting them elsewhere. And barely telling you how to find it.
Transmedia narratives. Yo.
Yeah. I mean, hey, it keeps us in a job. We got to explain all this stuff.
Yep.
But I think that's why even if Blizzard do it well, they're going to have a really hard time selling it to players, because a lot of players are not fully abreast of the jailer and Sylvanas. You know, they've only seen him as the big, weird, spooky man they saw at the start, and then the person they've seen in some cinematics, but they've never played with, they never journeyed with, they never experienced.
Yeah.
So it's going to be a real tough sell with Arthas. I think they can do it in a way where I will personally like it and will understand it and will think it's authentic to all characters involved. And I think that I will think that. I think there's a good chance Pyro will think about it. Taliesin will probably, you know, I think they can basically bring back Arthas in a way where all of us people who make lore videos and talk about that aspect of the game, that we will really like it. But I think they will struggle selling that to a bunch of the players who, you know, don't look into the details of the lore because they're making lore videos because they're really interested in it. So, tricky.
Yeah, it's like they absolutely haven't needled the thread, and it's like, I guess it's almost analogous to like the multiple ways they could design and direct the game by itself. It's just they haven't needled the thread, but it's between all of these extremely different like opinions and views and knowledge levels. It's going to be very, very difficult because, I mean, if they redeem Arthas, everyone's angry. If they don't redeem him at all, everyone's angry. It is a very, very, very... I can see why they're being super careful. I can see why they're trying to hold off on all possible detail till the last second.
Yeah. I mean, one way you could do it, like Devos, you know, the Forsworn. It's hard to tell with the timelines, but like, what if Devos was working for the jailer whenever she dropped Arthas down there?
Yeah.
And because the Machinery of Death wasn't broken at that point,
Yeah.
you know? Arthas didn't get to face the Arbiter's judgment.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. So we actually don't know where the essence of Arthas' soul should have went.
Yeah.
Very much, maybe it should have went to the Maw. But maybe it actually should have just went to Revendreth. Because, I mean, some of the NPCs you see in Revendreth, you hear about their crimes. Some of them are a bit Arthas-y, you know? There's kinslaying, there's stuff like that. So, you know, he was dropped in there. Does that mean that, like, the jailer is going to take perverse pleasure in turning Arthas into a super weapon? Do we get patch 9.3? In case of emergency, break glass, Arthas is back.
I think if they brought Arthas back in any capacity as the Lich King, it would need to be for a very, very brief moment and for a really cool thing that's paid off instantly, as opposed to, you know, a looming villain on the precipice. They'll probably have to do a very smart Illidan with him.
Yeah.
Which is dangle him like a thread, and then once we bite, go, haha, perfect.
They certainly have a financial incentive to do so.
Yes.
It worked for Illidan. It totally worked for Arthas.
Yes, absolutely. Although I did have one thought when you were saying about timelines in Devos, that Arthas skipping the Arbiter's judgment. Maybe that was because the jailer didn't want the Arbiter to see what he had done.
Wait, the jailer...
The jailer intentionally is corrupting the process of taking people into the Maw via the Forsworn, specifically so the Arbiter doesn't know what he's doing.
Whoa! Oh, that's such a big think.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really have any super consequences, but the idea, that the jailer
operating
is,
under their noses.
the idea is the jailer's dancing around the Arbiter, and God knows how long he's been doing that.
I mean, long.
Yeah.
Long if Denathrius' spies have been working for millennia.
Yeah.
That's big. That was a big think. I like that think. Very nice. So
that's two this week. Two big
yeah,
things.
I think that's the return of Arthas. So moving on then, we've got a question from Nino, the last unicorn. The expansion for Final Fantasy XIV may be out before we get the next tier of WoW. Between that, a patch, and other smaller holiday updates, it's a problem. Twitch, not to steal somebody else's thing, but true.
Yeah, no, let's put it this way. Why I can't believe I don't
When is
know what it's called.
Shadowbringers? When's Endwalker coming out?
It's September, I think.
Oh, okay.
So 9.1 will definitely be out
Yes.
before Endwalker, but I'll tell you this, there is nothing that is on the horizon for World of Warcraft to do that would make me play it over Endwalker. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, that would almost be by default because
Yeah,
we're
of course,
comparing
of
an
course.
expansion release to a content patch.
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, people are mad hype about Yoshi
Yeah,
P and the crew. So
They certainly they cannot do what they usually do, which is try to set up a patch to try to fight them off. That certainly won't work.
yeah, they can't.
Yeah.
Unless they tried to make classic TBC's release date coincide with that.
I think there'd be enough of an audience difference. It wouldn't matter too much. I think maybe.
Probably, yeah.
Maybe.
But maybe as a way to try to stop WoW people from wandering away.
Maybe, yeah. Oh, that'd be brutal. I mean, that would be the fundamentally correct choice, I think.
Yeah, and the reason I bring that up is that's the only way they can match that. Would Endwalker have a pre-patch?
No, they don't do
Okay,
pre-patches.
gotcha.
Yeah, fall 2021 actually. So that's. Oh yeah, and it's coming to PS5. Nice.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, so Blizzard basically have no way to compete with, or no answer to. It's that thing.
Yes.
Blizzard would always say, "Oh, we just developed the game. We never release patches in such a way to compete with other products." And then you're like, "Oh, you've met this Final Fantasy expansion. You've met this Guild Wars
patch.
launch,"
Yep.
and they always did it. But yeah, I guess they don't have a way to do it now. That said, they have a well-moated audience.
Yeah.
Like, there's people who, what they want is a Western-style fantasy world.
Yeah.
And for them, a bunch of anime characters and confusing things and chocobos and stuff and little lalafels.
I mean, there's there's gnomes, but whatever.
I mean, yeah, fair with gnomes. But there's a lot of people,
Yeah.
just the JRPG thing does nothing for them.
Yeah.
They will always stay with World of Warcraft. So Blizz does have that. But for those more fair weather people who are willing to switch between, I mean, Yeah, I guess it looks like Endwalker will come out like once the 9.1 big hype gameplay phase is passed. Then I guess it's about, will Blizzard have a 9.1.5? Because it used to be you'd get, you know, your 0.1 patch, then you get your 0.1.5 patch like, 77 days later, as it used to be in that expansion, Legion. Tricky. I'm sure the bean counters are thinking, I mean, if there was one way to compete with Final Fantasy 14, it is Arthas Menethil.
9.2, Arthas, Hope, Endwalkers, aiming October, try to get that at the same time, maybe.
Well, in the same way, a good way to compete with Final Fantasy was Illidan.
Yeah, and
So-
they did a damn good job of it.
Yeah.
That's it. Well, no, I think it's maybe a mid point. It's because the Endwalker is seemingly, from how its like marketing is going, is very much for FF14 players going,
Yeah.
this is the end of this journey you've all been on. Although as to whether that'll incite people to join to catch up on time, it certainly did me when I blasted that for a weekend and then
Yeah.
but, yeah.
So, okay. Moving on to the next question, though. Alex says, I am so tired of how recent WoW expansions don't really expand the game. I used to look forward to new spells or talents. Now I just wait to see what is being taken away from me in the next patch. You know, it's interesting that, you know, that can be a feeling that people would have, even though often you are getting things in the new patch. But I think what Alex is going for is... Because, you know, if he's thinking this, then he's probably somebody who started playing WoW around when we did.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I remember Wrath pre-patch, where you're like, oh, we have our new end cap talents. Or was that when Titans Grip came out? I'm pretty sure it was.
I think so,
'cause-
yeah.
I remember running around Stormwind during a zombie plague, if memory serves, with two-handed. It was pretty awesome. But yeah, it's that thing where, you know, I think World of Warcraft was growing and working out what it is over those earlier expansions. And now we're at the stage where I think Blizzard don't want to grow out what the World of Warcraft experience is. They want to, I think, sort of go in, refine, and then just keep on going.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't like that. You know, I am the sort of person, I would like to see, you know, player housing. That's a new feature in World of Warcraft. It's there forever. Caverns of Time. We can expect Caverns of Time stuff just as a thing in the game. You know, new character customization features, something to be added to for all time. But now, you know, Blizzard are very focused on like the build around feature of the new expansion that is only designed to last for that expansion. So I suppose many people, like perhaps Alex, would be thinking to themselves, you know, all this time goes into making Horrific Visions, all this time goes into making Torghast and the whatever stuff, and then it's thrown in the bin at the end. You know, all the time that went into making our class order halls, and all that time, you know, we play the patch, not the expansion. We play the expansion, not the game.
Yeah.
And that is happening, I think, more and more and more and more over time.
Definitely.
I think from a perspective of creating humongous hype and big spikes, that's actually the move to make. But I think if you want to optimize for long-term player satisfaction, it's just got to be building the game up and up and up and up and up slowly, and that's not really the way they do it these days. So I think that just means there's a category of people, like a bit of me, a bit of you, maybe a bit or a lot of Alex, for whom that's just how it feels.
Yeah.
Also, they poisoned the well with BFA.
Oh, yes. They certainly did.
Because now, you know, BFA is what gave so many people the feeling of just being punished for no good reason. And no, I mean, okay.
Yeah.
For if Ian explains it to you in a Q&A, a good reason.
Yes.
And that's actually basically the thing. And, it, you know, it reminds me of, it was a concept, I think it was from Jocko podcast of, you know, good shot, bad result.
Yeah.
And it was basically just their concept of, based on, you know, the rules of engagement, et cetera, you know, the correct decision was made.
Yeah.
But it obviously had the, you know, maybe a blue on blue, right?
Yeah, external factors like
So it's that sort of thing where all of the philosophies that, you know, like Ian would have explained in one of those Q&As that they've mysteriously stopped doing, you know, lots of us would agree with those philosophies. And I would almost always be in agreement with Ian.
Yeah.
But that's just a philosophy. And
Yeah.
it's different when it's something players can feel. And
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
BFA was just that thing of, you know, the AoE target cap. the GCD change of BFA,
Oh, yep.
all of that stuff. You get those devs down, they explain, you say, okay, why are you doing this? Show you're working out. And they're like, oh, okay, here's why we did it. And you're like, that all makes complete sense. Mission accomplished? Well, if it feels shit, mission not accomplished. Even though it's like everything you said could be correct logically, but if it feels worse to players, mission not accomplished. I'd say that's one of the number one things Blizzard struggles with.
Yeah, it's like...
There are big problem solvers who really, I think, forget the player experience a lot.
Yeah, I think that's... Ultimately, I think that's actually like... most of where they're going wrong is the player experience. I think
it's like the devil's in the details, and so they've just spent so much time fighting the devil that I think a bunch of things got lost in the process. And I think that's why you'll have these questions like, from Alex just being like, sometimes I just feel like the game punishes me arbitrarily.
Yeah, where's all the new stuff in the games? Like, oh, it's there. It's just none of it feels good, none of it feels new.
Yeah.
And it's because of how it's framed and how it's like they think they're giving you new stuff, and they are, but you're just thinking about the stuff you've lost.
Even though the reason why they took that away from you was something that logically we could all agree with, and was a change that Blizzard would have made earnestly and in good faith.
Yeah, if you had Azerite gear, and your Heart of Azeroth, and your Essences, and your Confidence, game would be terrible.
Yeah, it would suck. A lot of us would then just say, well, we don't want those things that we throw away at the end. We'd rather just get, building up over time.
Yeah, I think to use another half-baked stupid analogy, not about food. It's like a tree or a bush in your garden. It's like vanilla was like a little sproutling the first baking up. We're like, oh, sweet. Throw a bit of water on it. Oh, TBC. Oh, fantastic. Oh, rock. Beautiful. Everything. I'm level 80. I've got all this amazing stuff. All these new talents. And then Blizzard were like, that tree's a bit big. We'll have to start, trimming bits off it so new things can grow in. It's just trimming the bush down so it's not too big, I think is what it kind of ended up feeling or actually being. But it just feels like, why is my fucking tree not growing anymore?
Yeah.
That's getting the feeling like.
So to move on to another question, I think we've got a pretty good one here from Kaji Sagara, who said, it's weird how Fallout 76 have a lot of these quests that Bella's mentioning, like a mystery with a camp, a reward shareable with other players. Blizzard seems to be bone crew. So that was the question that they asked. And it perhaps seems like 76, it's a very different game. From what I understand, they're just like, here's a world, we're going to populate it with mysteries and stuff. And in a way, because they didn't have, the NPCs and storyline from the start, they had to do that more environmental storytelling. Yeah. I don't want to stay in 76 for a massive amount of time just because I know a lot of our people are not going to be big 76 people. Yeah. It is interesting, though, how so many people, their experience of Fallout 76 is it's like a Young video about a really low quality, cheap feeling jacket that they sold for the game instead of what the game actually is. And one of the shocking things that we found out decently recently is that Fallout 76 is one of the most played games in Game Pass.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so 76 must be doing something right. Yeah. As much as certainly did a lot wrong and has a lot of those, time saver, pay to skip stuff that feels real scummy in a shared world game. So you know what? Maybe that's a game to check out at some point.
Yeah, I think like to bring how the difference between it having a lot smaller content and then the kind of what Blizzard doesn't seem to have any of that in WoW. I think a lot of that comes down to an idea I was thinking about earlier where Legion was big success. It was a 1-2 punch. It was content system. Yeah. And then Blizzard went, oh, it was the hook that took them out. All right. Hand behind the back now. But they don't get the setup with the first punch. Surprisingly, boxing analogy now.
Yeah. World tour of things.
Yeah, but yeah, they haven't done the groundwork with content to actually get system set up. So if Fallout 76 had, actual decent systems lining up how it went through, and it didn't have some more of the, let's say, anti-consumer feeling elements. Yes. Because I don't actually know about it recently, but if it has that content, it's like it has one part of the puzzle solved. At least, assuming the content's good. Yeah. But Blizzard need to get their to go into the gym and start training their jab again.
Well, they already have a jab. It's the president of the company. There's a bit of me, and it's like that. It's totally unrealistic, or maybe it's not. But there's a bit of me that just wishes that WoW had like just this little content team off on the side, and their express job was to make cool shit that was tied into nothing else in the game.
Yeah.
And it's just like that team does whatever it does, and if they have stuff shippable by a patch date or a minor patch date, it goes in. Maybe they do have a little bit of that with the micro events and stuff, but it feels like that's maybe they've fallen off that horse because they've all had to scramble just to get the basic core content done. To move on to another one though, just a quickie from Unknown Character 14 who said, "Thanks for the WoW overload of systems rant. Solidified my purchase of Monster Hunter Rise."
Nice, goodbye.
Which
Good
I
man.
just wanted to bring up to say, the best way for you to enjoy World of Warcraft is probably to quit, play Monster Hunter Rise, and then come back for the next patch instead of just feeling like you got to stick around.
Yeah.
And I think that while the bean counters at Activision Blizzard would not like that, I think a bunch of the developers working in the game would rather you went away when you didn't feel like playing it, because what they, as Towley said, Towley mentioned that devs were worried that 9.1 would take so long that people wouldn't want it by the time it would come out. And I think somebody could only be in that situation if they have to rely on World of Warcraft for all of those months in between. So I think one of the ways you can actually help the WoW developers is to cancel your sub, to give them some respectful and detailed feedback in the exit poll, and then to enjoy yourself such that whenever those people are, make some new content for you to enjoy that they're very passionate about as creators, that you're in a position to actually enjoy it. I think that's what a WoW dev would probably prefer as well.
Yeah, they just would never be allowed to say that in public.
Yeah, they'd never be allowed to say it, but at the end of the day, they are human beings who are making a video game because they're passionate about video games, and they will want you to have fun. So try to think about how to have more fun and what that might entail.
Yeah, and I'm not even a big Monster Hunter guy, but I think based on what I've seen, because it was like today, based on what I've seen today, I think that was a very good purchase. A lot of Monster Hunter people are very, very excited, to the point where I'm thinking about going home and booting up Iceborne, because Monster Hunter World is on PS Plus.
Oh,
for
nice.
free, so
So there's another question here from Dastil, who said, "You guys are the one thing that keeps me interested in this game." Hey, Blizzard, where's our referral code? Joking. Thank you. You said keep doing the good work. Thank you. I mean, man, stuff like that in a Zothlore video, we want to...
Yep.
But I said, any thoughts on the massive change to New World? It really rises my hope for the game by a lot. So apparently there was a big update to the alpha. I don't know much about it. There was an update to the alpha which added, I think, a new dungeon, a whole bunch of new content, and has been very well received by players. So this is something that I would like to dive into in our other channel, the news channel.
We might just.
We might just do that. What I can say, though, is I don't know a massive amount about it personally, but Force did do a video on it.
Oh, on the Empress of Ebenskill? Empress of Ebenskill Reach, yep.
Yeah, so if you just go to Force Gaming, at least bring it up, because, give old Dennis a shout out. Where is it? Yes, New World is... Yes, so the video he released is New World is really turning into a decent-looking MMO.
Yep.
It's kind of funny. If... we could totally Asmongold to react out of this, but we don't really have the headphones set up to actually do it. So the best I can say is we can't really do a watch-along of this video with you, but if you're interested in New World, then I think he's done a video diving into it.
Let's look at these comments.
To actually just go through, though, he said, so the last alpha brought New World, which is Amazon's MMO, a brand new zone, second dungeon, voiceover for all main story quests, and about 10 pages of sweeping changes to every weapon in the game. Now that's pretty big because this is one of those games where the weapon that you wield is very impactful on the abilities that you've got. It seems like a really conceptually cool combat system. I think it just needed a lot of work.
Yes.
So awesome. Awesome. I really hope that game does fantastically because it's more competition. Competition in the market is good. I hope that it's like more competition, and I hope that doesn't mean that the existing WoW devs just get squeezed. I hope that means that Activision Blizzard know, okay, there's more competition in this market. We can respond to this, but to do so, we need to invest more in the product. You know, because if we're in a situation right now where there doesn't seem to be that cool, unique stuff, and we're basically just getting the bare minimum bread and butter that is shippable, because it seems like the team's always having to scramble because they're behind. I mean, surely that tells you that they need more resources.
Yeah.
And if there's more competition out there via Endwalker and New World, then, you know, whenever Ian talks to his producer, and maybe Ian's like, hey man, I wish, you know, some of the guys had a really cool idea in a meeting we just had, but we just don't have the time to put it together. What do we, you know, is there any way we could get more, you know, the more that there's competition in the market, then those people at Blizzard who are advocating upwards through the bureaucracy that is a thing in any big company, it gives them more ammunition. So that's one of the reasons I'm all for more competition. And then as a player, seems neat.
Yeah, that's fundamentally where I'm coming from. Like, more games that are good, sweet.
Yeah.
That's good. There is nothing to complain about there whatsoever, unless the only super niche thing to complain about is maybe if New World does something that like World of Warcraft copies, but World of Warcraft players don't want it. But I don't think they've ever actually really done that, so that's not a concern.
Yeah.
But no, looks certainly interesting. I mean, comments here in this YouTube video are just like, MMO devs actually being hard at work for a change is refreshing, which obviously is unfair, but it shows
Yeah.
this is getting significant changes, significant updates.
Yeah, it's like sentiment
quick.
can be bullshit or based on bullshit facts, but if it's what somebody feels,
Yeah, there's likely a truth behind that feeling. So
yeah, I mean that's not getting into a humongous rant about post-truth society and how being right isn't necessarily, you know,
no.
should it be the most important thing? We can have a debate about that, but it doesn't always end up being the most important thing because emotions end up trumping, you know, reality.
Yeah.
By the way, just in case somebody wants to quote mine or something, when I said trumping there, you know, that is trumping as in the term of phrase. It has nothing to do with American politics. You know, Top Trump's the card game. I don't know where that came from. Maybe it has to do with the Donald. I don't know, but
I don't think so. So it's like Top Trumps because Top Trumps this, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there was some etymology there.
I also just figured that out.
So, right, there's that. Then, the Jamsler. The Jamsler says, long-time viewer and casual heroic player, I wish Blizzard could take a step back from the complexities of gearing systems and put more of a focus on things that bring people together within the game. To which I say, yeah. Yeah, true. You know, I wish there was more incentives for gilded play. Experiential incentives. I do not think going to Cataclysm guild perks is the way to go.
No.
But if you can have, you know, guild halls, that is just there as a cool thing, then that's experientially cool in a way that doesn't impact balance or anything like that. So I think that, yeah, the more that we can bring people together, the better. And I think it makes a lot of sense for Blizzard's long-term financials, because the players who are the most likely to stick with the game are the players who are playing with friends.
Yep, sticking in it together.
Yeah. So I think anything that enhances it as a shared world experience is good. And it's hard to do that in Cross Realms.
Yeah.
You know, I love the idea of world content, and I did love world content in the past. I've really not liked it in a long time.
Yeah.
You know, there's some interactions like the Barn and WoD that I liked, but really it was after MOP that I stopped liking it as much, because it just for me became a lot more formulaic and stilted.
Yeah.
Where the more that they can just like any time I've tried to sit down and think about how to make World of Warcraft be this big cool world, and I've thought about, you know, say vanilla world PvP and how that was, it's always just runs into, but realms can be cross, you know, or zones can be cross realm, and how do you do that? You know, how do you make the state of a zone matter whenever you can cross realm it?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. It's like, because I think, yeah, you'd have to go back on cross realm to a certain degree, or be very, very smart about it. Which is to say, if the state of the zone has to matter, then that would need to be inherently tied to your character, and then you would have to, you know, you'd have to only ever be in that zone with that realm, and then you have to look at like battle groups or something as a way to like make that world content matter, or like worldwide or region-wide progress as opposed to individual stuff. I think that's probably the first place to look for how you can make zone stuff matter. But I think my major fear for all of that, hello, we're going to have players feel like they need to work together and all that stuff, all the how to bring guilds together and players together and keep them together. I think the big fear I have there has to be, almost like you said with the Cata Guild perks, it'll be tied into systems in some capacity when it needs to be experiential. I think that's the gist of it. It needs to be a natural reason or a thing you find fun together. But I feel like the way Blizzard will do it, or would do it if they were to implement it like right away, would just be, you need this currency, you can only get it as part of these groups, or something to that effect. Maybe not quite as brutal or as like, as transparent, but I feel like they would, that's a step they need to take after they step towards the player experience, because then they can nail the group experience. But I mean, Guildhall's is a good start for guilds.
Yeah.
I don't know how to repair the social fabric of World of Warcraft, because that's I think that's long gone and a very long discussion for someday. But interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I think we're probably decently similar players, being casual heroic raider. I just want to get curve ideally a bit earlier when it's a bit harder at lower gear.
Yes.
And enjoy social things and enjoy that like just world experience. So I mean, I think we'd very much be individuals with aligned incentives.
Yes.
Next then, we've got from Simon M, who says, do you think if WoW launched today, with the way they develop it, would it succeed? I would say it would obviously succeed way less, because it would not be as groundbreaking, but also the market would look different if it launched today, because if it launched today, then it didn't launch a long time ago, and it was a game that changed everything in many ways. I mean, would the big Dark Age of Camelot like PvP MMO actually be the thing that took off as the big MMO? Would we all be Lotro players? I mean, who the hell knows? And so many games were developed kind of because WoW was successful. So I think that WoW benefits from having an audience that has been with it for a very, 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 very long time.
Yes.
And I would definitely say that it would struggle without that. And if it was just launching today, it wouldn't have that. It's a more competitive market.
Yeah, I think that alternate history World Without WoW would actually be a fantastic think piece. It'd be great to see all the possibilities of where things could go. But fundamentally, I think the answer, assuming the intent of the question was, if a game that was like World of Warcraft launched today without the audience and without the attached like history, without the big name behind it, if it just launched as like any game, I think it would probably fall somewhere in the popularity range of some of the like lesser played like Korean MMOs, probably, just because it has some really nice gameplay stuff. It's got a neat world. It's got plenty of stuff to do in it, assuming you're super gameplay focused. But it would be a tiny fraction of the size, just because it's, like you say, it's inflated so much by how many people have extreme attachments to it. Yeah, I think fundamentally the answer is it would not. I don't think it would succeed. I think it would do fine.
Yeah,
do fine.
Probably. Yeah, I mean, okay, old school RuneScape would be bigger, probably. And I mean, okay, me and you know that because of reasons that we can't discuss.
Yes,
sort of. So yeah, but I mean, that's kind of old information, but it would still track to today. I think just because people maybe underestimate the gargantuan size of OSRS.
Big.
And I say that because OSRS came out before RuneScape was out before World of Warcraft.
Yes.
The OSRS base was 2007, RuneScape. But, if World of Warcraft didn't come out and you were going for an MMO, I mean, that's stage 1. It's like Final Fantasy.
It's FF11 or
yeah, it's like
RuneScape.
FF11, RuneScape, Dark Age of Camelot, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So to move on, and I am very aware we're at 3 hours in.
3 hours and 15 minutes.
Yes, my voice bits are sore now. But
Yep.
so yes, we will go on for a bit. If there are any missed super chats, we will get to them either as their own clips for the Clips channel or at the top of next week's show.
Yes.
But from Sharksy then, Legion Time Walking will be coming this expansion. On top of Dungeons would be a great opportunity to bring that back. The Mage Tower, even without rewards. To which I say, doing the Mage Tower would probably be hard for a whole bunch of reasons. But even if they didn't get it perfect, it would be a neat experience. Or even just a way that you could, like, I don't know, go to the Mage Tower and just sort of scale me down, Scotty. But it would be really hard to make that work with kits changing. And, you know, it's probably a bit more cheesable now that things have changed. So it's sort of tricky.
Yeah.
But it's such an awesome bit of content.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything kit-wise that would make it impossible based on like what you're supposed to do with all like the double jump and fell rush over the laser beams or AMS through them or death grip the dude. All of that stuff. I don't think anything's super different there, but I have just this one major fear that's just like it was just a chill went up my spine when I thought about it. If they want to bring that back, it would require work in order to get it to scale, in order to actually divorce it from all the nether shards requirements and stuff and bring it there, which means they would have to incentivize it, which means they would have to probably want to put a reward on it that's unique. They'd probably want to bring it to a lot more players, which means they might fundamentally end up treating it like they did the anniversary raids. And if I see my beloved Mage Tower treated it like that anniversary raid, I'd never forgive them. Never forgive them. Because that was unbalanced, let's say.
Yes.
That was unbalanced and frustrating. And I feel like the Mage Tower needs a bit more justice than that.
Yeah, fair. So to move on then, Miko says, I think Blizzard is lacking a real competitor in the scene in order to improve. A good example is CSGO. Whenever Valorant came, Valve started to push updates more.
Yeah.
So I'll take your word on that. I'm not abreast of the CSGO sort of update cadence. I know there was historically a lot of skepticism and frustration at Valve for how they handled that game.
They were hands off for so long.
Yeah.
So many things. Valorant was a bit up the hole for them. But
yeah, so I mean, this is really tying into what we already answered.
Yeah.
So I won't elaborate humongously. Just that, yeah, like if New World or whatever it may be would be the kick up the arse, then that would obviously be good for us as World of Warcraft players.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And yeah, I explained the mechanics of by which that could happen internally previously.
Yeah, I think it's weird. I think it's the only thing I have to say about that is I think World of Warcraft will. I think its only real competitor is itself because of so many, at least in like a super fundamental level, because of how many players play World of Warcraft versus World of Warcraft. Like there are people who play it because it's WoW and are attached to it for so long that the real competition they have is staying above the I'm so dissatisfied I'm quitting forever bar. I think that's the only real competition they actually have for like maybe 40 to 60% of the player base. I think, because, well, I mean, they seem to be staying at a baseline despite every, like, other major, like, live service game and thing to do with your attention running rings around them. So there's competition, extremely strong competition from everywhere else, hasn't seemed to faze them too much. So what can do? And I think it has to be a massive internal failure.
Yeah, I guess anything that feels like it's kicking them while they're down.
Yeah.
So, you know, if Blizzard devs are worrying the 9.1 is simply going to be too late, and then Final Fantasy is popping off like a crazy thing, and New World is doing well, then maybe that's enough that the bean counters will think, uh-oh.
Maybe. Hopefully.
Yeah, so to move on then, there's a follow-up from Rally who said, my point was less that it's acceptable, but that if it costs a raid to get Legion to be what it was, what does that say about their internal structure? I would say that they are bad at seeing problems ahead of time. They seemingly gleefully walk into landmines, and that means that they set themselves up for future failure, and that means that it's pretty hard for them to get ahead of themselves, such that seemingly getting a Legion costs us a scuffed expansion that gets abandoned. And yep, shouldn't be like that. And that all just comes down to they clearly need to, in my opinion, simplify the systems of the game, prioritize content, and perhaps try to get more resources on board. Apparently the team's the largest it's ever been, but it's if it doesn't feel like that, then there's an issue.
Yeah, I think they just need to put the priority on getting content creation faster. That's fundamentally it, I think, because you know, they should look at how they made Legion and go, all right, can we do that again? Can we do that again? Can we hire, you know, can we spend 500 million to get all these people in to do this, and then, you know, we'll be good after that. It's just that major investment and immediate sacrifice needs to be made. The only problem is, how can they make a sacrifice when they're currently not making any sacrifices that we're aware of, and they're already struggling?
Yeah, and then they maybe would wonder about opportunity cost. You know, would it be worth putting all that money into World of Warcraft when that money could go into another product that could be its own explosive growth new IP? Yeah. Yeah. And we've got John Bolton, the political figure apparently. Maybe
of course,
might not actually be him.
Maybe
It says, "Lovely to see you lads at the round table. Wish you chaps happy Friday. Cheers.
Thank you.
Stay classy, Los Angeles." Thank you, John Bolton, whoever you may actually be. We've got another super chat from Steve O, who says, T&E and Bellular keep me interested in WoW. Mankirk has a house, but I don't, and I've saved Azeroth countless times. More customizations, transmogs, things that matter. At this point, I can't come back. Which I think a lot of what Steve O was speaking to is stuff we've talked about thus far, which just is that thing of, gear can't last for everything. Gear just doesn't do it for loads of people. We need more than gear. So, Steve-O, I agree. And you know,
spot on, man.
I actually think the best way to make, you know, just to pull out of a hat, and because, you know, I have enough of a personal rapport with Mike that if I get something wrong, it's grand. But like, I think the best way to keep Preach happy as a mythic raider is to make player houses and put loads of lore in the game.
Yeah.
And I say that because, you know, I don't think those are things... I actually think those are things I know that Mike loves in other games, like RPG, March, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But in World of Warcraft, you know, dude's more of a raider. That's his big concern, right? Yep. So, if World of Warcraft had player housing and there was way more of a focus on the world content and stuff, and that was just enough to keep loads of players happy, such that the raiders just like, yeah, you know, going to go do my raid, done my raid, job's good, and I'm done.
Yep.
I think the best way to keep the Mythic Plus people and the raiders happy, and in a way I fall into that category in some ways, and as do you, I think it's to keep those things simple, to prioritize and giving us good boss fights and more boss fights and fun progression, and just, you know, not keeping it over, not making it overcomplicated, and then just putting the efforts elsewhere to keep other people happy. I think that's best for the health of the game, and in a way, putting less time and effort into the things that surround raiding is probably the best way to keep raiding good and pure. And just focused on the raid and the content and the experience of going in with your mates to kill some bad guy.
Yeah, it's like they need to combine the 80-20 principle and case to just kind of go, all right, just do most of a good job for 5 different groups of people instead of putting all of our resources into doing a job that's not actually even perfect yet for one group. Yeah, I mean, you know, food analogies, we love them over here. One of my favorite food analogies is trying to juice the pulp. So imagine you make a beautiful thing of juice. You're like, delicious. I've loved my juice. Yeah. You're like, I wish I had more juice, but I don't have any resources. Okay, I'll put the pulp back in the juicer to try to get more juice. It often feels like Blizzard trying to use systems to just squeeze as much as they can out of the content they've made. It just feels like that. But the problem is, the juice that you get from juicing the pulp is bitter and horrible. And it doesn't make people happy, even though they like juice. And maybe that's, you know, something's happening to some elements of WoW. That obviously is a bit reductive, but, you know, hopefully there is some sort of point that stems forth from that. Loads of bullets, not one silver bullet, loads of bullets.
Riddle me! Riddle me with bullets! Blizzard.
Oh, dear. Metaphorical ones.
yeah. Then Daniel M says, my friends who just turned 20 tell me that Classic and WoW sucks because it's an old game and it's too slow, and go back to play Destiny. Thoughts? Yeah, look, the brainworms of modern... Yeah, Zoomer. The brainworms of modern psychologically aware design have just got into their heads, and
Pew pew.
yeah, that's it. You know, they obviously are maybe more optimizing for the short-term feel and the short-term gratification, which Destiny does awesomely, because me and Matt know that because we've put a lot of time into Destiny. But what's key is we don't put time into Destiny over time. We will just play it a bunch for like one weekend, and then we're done.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of the modern games are like that. Now, that said, Marvel's Avengers is trying to be Destiny. Anthem tried to be Destiny.
Yeah.
Everything that's tried to be Destiny's failed, basically.
Yeah. It's really difficult. It's like it feels like that was the whole big trend of games for a long time, was just how can we turn this into the closest thing to a literal Skinner box that we possibly can. Skinner box, the thing where was the pigeon, or was it
Pigeon, I think.
It was a pigeon, tap the thing, got food. That was it. Just tap the thing, get food. Press button, instant result. Just constant, like, you press a button and your brain gets all this dopamine, you're happy. But it's super quick. It's not a long-term enjoyment thing. It's like, it's the fundamentally different to what Classic was, which is a long journey. It's the equivalent of reading tweets versus reading books. Classic is reading a book, but Destiny is reading a good tweet.
Yeah.
I think, and that's a good way to kind of get the age part in there as well.
Well, playing Destiny's like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's it. And, I think World of Warcraft's strength, where when it is strong, its strength is that it's not like Destiny.
Yeah.
That it is something for the longer haul. I think that's what's beautiful and special about World of Warcraft and about the MMO genre. Mm-hmm. So I would always advocate for a game that, unfortunately, Daniel, your friends don't like. And in a way, I think you'd advocate for that as well, because you're the one trying to get them into the game.
Yep.
So I think that's pretty much just how it is.
Yeah, there's just, I guess, a push and pull across different people.
Yeah, oh man, we've gone for 3.5 hours, so I think it's time to wrap things
nice.
up.
Sweet.
Oh, sitting is sore.
Yeah, no, my shoulders are gone.
My personal hope is that, was that today's stream was us going through a bunch of hype data mining and being able to show you cool models and do all of that, actual big fun. But, based on what Towley's mates told him, might be a little bit before we can do that.
Yep. Yeah.
So, that is basically the situation. A humongous thank you to all of our super chatters, to our channel members, to our patrons.
It's on the desk there.
There's
somewhere.
The bow and arrow.
Yeah, there's the bow.
Yeah, I should. We need to get the art actually in with us. Which camera should I steal to? Because I don't think people have seen this before. We showed off in the last one.
I have no recollection.
Yeah. So right, well, let's.
Yeah. All right.
I'm gonna go and put it on camera.
Grab the wide one. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Goodbye. Focus will soon be ruined. Oh Jesus.
Hang on, we need to get light.
Brutal.
All right. Now we need a zoom.
Do you want me to hold it? Or are you good?
I'm good.
Nice.
This must be beautiful to watch.
Yeah, I really should have swapped it to something else while you did that. Oh, whatever.
There we go.
Whatever.
So, if you would like to get a really cool bow and arrow pin, then hey, Patreon. And also on Patreon, there's cool things like behind the scenes. And there actually will, as of April.
Oh, you goon.
Yeah, I was a bit silly.
Yeah, so.
But yeah, as of... let me focus that in just...
Good.
Yeah, as of April, there will be more going on with Patreon.
Yes, we have...
In the same way that Blizzard have struggled being a bit behind schedule and things. So too have we.
Yeah, we have I don't want to say anything in particular, but we have a lot of things we're working on, a lot of cool assets to use, a lot of content plans and ideas that we will begin to roll out.
Yes.
Hopefully within the next few weeks.
Yeah, should be.
That's
So,
that's our plan. That's our plan. I have a very busy next week scheduled, so hopefully,
Yeah, and,
hopefully it all turns out good.
I have got a batch of 1,000 pins to
Yes.
QC. So I'll get my, I'll get the spotlight down. I'll be looking through all of them, which is actually fun because that's when I watch Stargate, and that's always a good time. Finally, we did get a super sticker, a fist bump from Arthur K. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
And with that said,
Yeah, I think it is.
I just do this for tonight.
It is 11 p.m.
We're tired boys.
Yes, you guys can't hear it.
Oh, John Starr, thank you for joining, member.
Oh, thank you very much. You guys can't hear it, but the karaoke
Yeah.
in the building is going. They're having a great time. I think it stopped raining, but it's still very cold, so I think we will.
Yeah, man,
going.
it's going to be great. After this, we're going
Yeah.
to go to the Tesco, or at least I'm going to go to the Tesco that closes at 12 and see what happens there. And also,
Yeah.
just John Starr to the other members. I can't say exactly when, but I would like to get like the emojis, like the custom
Yes.
emojis and stuff in for channel members. So that is something
Yes.
that is it definitely something will happen after we've done our Patreon revamp.
Yes.
But yeah, for the live content
Yeah.
stuff, we would like to do that. And you know what? I wish there was a way that we could, link in our list of Patreon people to our list of YouTube people, so that our patrons could have those emojis. But that is just it's literally impossible. You
Yeah.
can't manually add a channel member,
No.
like with just an email address or a login, which is unfortunate. But obviously, YouTube want to get their 30%
course, yeah.
cut of everything. So.
Yeah, it's
But-
we may have to put the screws to the artists a little bit to get them any more actual things out of them given the time. But
Well, we do have a new artist in the team,
so we do.
so that's pretty neat.
Yeah, maybe we'll just use all the emotes that John made of you.
Oh dear, John did make some emotes.
Yeah, our guild Discord server has some very unreasonable things just to annoy Michael.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's what I bloody well deserve.
Yep.
And with that said, thank you for watching,
Thank you
everybody.
very much.
Good night.
Good night.